They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge and name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives we can't just weep. Elected power but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they tried to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run nor hide. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for heroes, undo the harm. Calling out corruption, we'll stand tall for justice and truth, we'll risk it all. My life mattered is the cry we sing. Together we rise, let freedom ring.
Good evening, social change warriors. Good evening, justice seekers. Welcome back to another Wednesday episode of our social change warriors. Boy, that's a mouthful tonight. Social change warriors episodes that we are hosting on Wednesdays for women survivors and victims of domestic violence and their families. Thursdays for calling out corruption in police and government. And Fridays, cases that we are interested in as a group of social change warriors. This current time, we are focusing right now on the Karen Reed and John O'Keefe case out of Canton, Massachusetts. So that's what we're mainly covering now on Fridays, but we may add some others as you tell me what you want to hear and see. So welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us tonight. Again, this is our Wednesday night session, which is our Angry Bitch Club. And on Wednesdays, we swear. So I just want to warn you all, if you have sensibilities to swearing, this isn't your night, because we like to let it loose on Wednesday nights. Thursdays, we're all into the autopsies, the police reports, looking over the case, trying to figure out how to solve it, supporting the families. We try to not do too much swearing on Thursdays. Fridays is kind of a mixed bag, but Wednesdays is our Angry Bitch Club, where we get to be absolutely mad about everything that's going on in these cases for these amazing women and some men. We will cover men on Wednesdays if the woman is also part of the victimization, because Wednesdays we can do whatever we want, really, but mostly Wednesdays we stick to women victims and survivors of domestic violence. So we are back again tonight with our dear Sara Ebersole. We have all come to love her as if she was one of our own family. We have come to love Michelle, her sister. And even though most of us have never met them, we feel so much empathy for this sad, horrible situation of years-long domestic violence that Sara Ebersole put up with and dealt with from the father of her child. And then on that fateful night of March 3rd, 2023, March 2nd, the night of March 2nd, into the early morning hours of March 3rd of 2023, Sara disappeared. She literally vanished into thin air, supposedly. And that's what we've been left with. And that's what her family, her friends, her sister, Michelle, that's literally what they've been left with. Not a lot of answers and a lot of questions. So I have a wonderful co-host again tonight who is also a survivor, was a victim, is now a survivor of domestic violence, again, for you to meet. And we are meeting Hannah again. Hi, Hannah, welcome.
Hello.
Hi, girl, welcome, and thank you. Look so beautiful.
You look beautiful too.
Well, no mascara today. My allergies were not happy with me. And I thought, you know what? Too bad. I'm 62. You get no filters. You get no mascara. You get me. That's it today. So
I love it.
Just deal. So I have my button on let me show it to y'all. That Michelle, a friend of Michelle's made these for her. And I was given one when I went to the standout on Saturday. There's beautiful Sara. And the button says, Missing and Endangered Mother, Sara Gail Ebersole. So these buttons are available if anyone wants one. I'm sure we can find a way to raise the money for postage for Michelle to send them to you. So I'm wearing mine proudly. The other one I put on my purse so that when I'm in the stores, I have it right on my handle, my purse. So somebody can say, hey, what's that about? And people do. I really love that about humans. There's a lot of things I don't love about humans in the last couple of weeks, Hannah. There's been a lot of things with you dealing with some of your hateful humans that come on your page, hateful humans that are coming on Michelle's page. I've had hate thrown at me as well. And I don't like hateful humans, but I do believe there are still good humans out there. And I trust that there are. And we have to believe in that because we are standing for victims of very major crimes and devastating loss for their families. And you yourself have survived a terrible ordeal with the father of your children, your husband, who completely turned into someone you didn't even know.
Yeah. I mean, there were signs. I wish hindsight, but I don't think I ever thought that, he'd pour gas on me and set me on fire while I was asleep with our children in the home.
I don't think any mother or wife or girlfriend or fiance would ever in a million years imagine that someone they loved could hurt them. That's the thing about domestic violence that's so horrific, is that it starts out very slow. Obviously, men that abuse their wives typically don't do it when they're dating them, right? They wear a mask. They act as someone that they're not, and they're looking for that person because they have something wrong inside of them that causes them to become violent when they don't get their way, or just when they want something that they can't have sometimes, or just because. That's the scariest part about domestic violence, is sometimes you don't do or say anything at all. You walk on eggshells the whole time that you are in the household with this type of a human, because you never know what's going to set off a person that has violent tendencies.
My ex-husband told me one of the last times that I talked to him that he just really doesn't like when his feelings get hurt. Okay. Come on now. Adult 101, your feelings are going to get hurt. That's where communication comes into play. Communication. And when there's no communication and someone is capable of being that violent, it's not something I seen coming. And I'm sure that nobody does. One of the worst comments that I have gotten, because I get a lot of comments just in general, because we were in a biracial relationship. Mm-hmm. Somebody said, and it was on TikTok or whatever, they were like, "Are you surprised?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm really surprised when someone sets their wife on fire with their children in the home. Is this something that happens normal where you're from?" What? Yeah, I'm surprised. I'm still surprised. 18 years later, still surprised.
I think one of the things is most people who have never been in any kind of a relationship where there was any kind of violence. Some people are beyond blessed or lucky, whatever you want to believe in, right? And they marry a person who is their equal and who they're equal to, and they treat them with respect. They treat them kindly. They're great parents. They're great co-parents. They have a wonderful marriage, and they never have this. They have arguments. Everybody has arguments. There's not going to be a couple on this planet that isn't going to tell you they don't argue. That's human. We argue with our friends, our sisters, we get irritated with ourselves, for goodness sake. So yes, people argue, but there are those select few out there, and I don't know how many percentage. I'd love to know. I'd love to do a study on what is the percentage of people that have been married to one person, or even possibly two. Maybe their first marriage broke up amicably and they got married and got lucky again and married another great person. But I'd like to know what the percentage of that is, because it doesn't seem like it's very high to me. And I think that out there on social media, though, there are those people that have never experienced any type of animosity with their husband to that level, where they want to run home to their mother, or they want to leave and go to a hotel, or they're afraid every day when they wake up what's coming now. And so they don't understand. They don't have that level of empathy. It's okay, Zeus, come here. They don't have that level of empathy for your situation. And then and social media gives everybody this open platform. It's like a heyday now, right? And now we have more than ever. We used to just have, what was it called? MySpace, right? Back in the day.
You're showing your age, Catherine. You're showing your age.
It's okay. I never lie to anybody on my channel.
You're showing mine.
Yeah, exactly. But my kids had MySpace like their senior years of high school, because I think it was around their sophomore years, but I wouldn't let them have it. So I wasn't ready for that. I didn't even know really what the heck was going on. I mean, if you think about my generation, guys, we had phones that rang and rang and rang if you didn't answer. There was no voicemail when I was a kid. There was no call waiting when I was a kid. There was one phone per household. If you were super lucky when you turned like 14, your mom might have let you have an extension in your bedroom. But that's only if you were super lucky. Most of us had one phone. I can tell you right now where it was when I was a child. And when it rang, it rang. And if you weren't home, you weren't home. And guess what? People didn't lose their shit because they figured you weren't home, right? Now people lose their shit if you don't. It's Wednesday. I just want to remind all of you, on Wednesdays we swear. People lose their shit if you don't answer your goddamn phone. It's like, man, I mean, there's going to come a day where it's just going to be in our ear. It'll just be, the phone will literally be in your ear, and you'll have this thing that you click. I don't know. It's coming, I'm sure, because they keep getting.
It's probably going to be attached to my electric cigarette.
Oh, right.
They actually make them with the vapes that I use or whatever. They're rechargeable. They actually make them with Bluetooth speakers attached to them. Like,
oh my God. I know there's already the iWatch, right? And everybody has, or if you have the other kind of phone, sorry, Apple, I won't advertise for them. But if you have the other kind of phones, right, you can actually, it's like Max Smart, or what, remember that show back when I was a kid? You probably weren't even born yet. Maxwell Smart, right? Guys, help me out, 50 and 60-year-olds. But yeah, they had the smartwatch, or, James Bond stuff, which nobody could even conceive of. That's where we're at. But here's the thing, like I said, guys, social media is a blessing and a curse. I've said this many times, because when I was a kid, if you weren't home, you weren't home, and nobody got mad at you or frustrated with you or upset with you. If you didn't answer, you didn't answer. Now, the answer machine came into play maybe about like 1992, 93. And then that started getting a little dicey. Then you would get, hey, why aren't you picking up your phone? That's when it all started, right? The answering machine inserted we should be available 24/7 to anybody who calls us. And then we get questioned when we're not. So that's what kind of entered that. And then, of course, enters all the craziness that happened once we got all the smartphones and the cellular phones. And I mean, they used to be in bags in your car and cost $1,000. And the price to use them was like $1 million an hour. I'm just kidding. But, I can sort of, do the.
I remember my best friend's mom in the early 90s. I think it was Alltel or whatever. She had like this big, huge phone that was in this big box, because my best friend's little brother had health problems, and so she needed to always be able to call 911. And so that was like the first cell phone I ever seen. And then the ones that came in like sports cars and stuff, like, not that I had them, but like I know like they came in cars.
Right. Yeah, they did early on. My ex-husband had one in his car, and it was like the car. It was in the car. It wasn't in the bag. Like there was the phones in the bags. Like a lot of the CEOs had those that they got to carry around with them where they went. And yeah, the world has evolved, and we have to keep up with it, right? But we're evolving at such a fast pace, and social media is so out of control. So now, circling back to what I was talking about, people just get on there and they don't have a clue what you've been through. They have no idea who you are, what your backstory is, and they comment about it, comment about your post, and go on your page, it's somebody you don't even know, and start in on you. And that's the part about social media that I don't like. I don't like the bullying and the nastiness and the name calling, and I don't like any of that. And there's a lot of content creators that are playing into that too. You know, they're actually bullying other content creators, or they're bullying people that are trying to make impacts on cases that, and they may not agree with what that person's trying to do, but that person has just as much right to do it as you do. Who are you? Who made you? I love that song by Sara Ebersole. Have you ever heard that? I wish I could play it without getting a strike. I may have to email her and see if we can play her song on Wednesdays. Who died and made you king of anything? And that's what we're dealing with on Wednesdays, with narcissistic men who beat up their women or who yell at their women. Some men don't beat you up. They just yell at you all the time and make you feel inferior and sad and horrible. And that song by Sara Ebersole is really emotional and really good. And it means different things to different people, but that's how I took it when I listened to her song, Who Died and Made You King of Anything. And that's what's going on right now with content creators, social media, X, Instagram. There's all these people who think they're king of everything, and they can say whatever they want to say to you.
Like a lot of us who our stories are true crime, I had no say-so in 2007 on what story got said about me. As a matter of fact, I was in a coma, for 6.5 weeks. So basically every story that was ran on me and my family they were done. Like we weren't, it wasn't important national news by the time I woke up. They woke me up out of the coma. So I actually missed so many reports, which I'm glad about now. But it's like whenever I knew that I was going to write a book, I knew I was going to end up being a public person, and I knew that I was going to deal with scrutiny regardless, even if it was maybe for decisions that I made throughout my life, because my book, Heroes and Monsters, I attribute that to my behavior too.
We'll put that back up on our social media for you too. If anybody's interested in Hannah's book, it's very reasonable. It's very telling, very well written. We'll share that back out on all our social media.
And someone asked me earlier, because I guess they're learning English or whatever, and they asked me, was it easily to read? And I was like, well, I think so, because I'm not a very educated person. I'm street smarts. But right. I stopped trying to. I was not very good student growing up. But it's also available on Audible, so you can listen to it if you're a truck driver or if you clean or you're
road tripping, whatever. Yeah, perfect. Well, I'm just grateful to have you back. Again, I'm absolutely stunned and sorry for what you went through, but you survived it. You're a survivor, and now you are an advocate for other victims and survivors of domestic violence. And you have met Michelle on the platform on Facebook, and you are conversing with her, and now you are standing with her and with me and with everyone else. I'm going to bring Michelle up to the stage with us here. Give me a second. And hi, Michelle.
Hi.
How are you tonight?
All right.
Good. I'm wearing my aqua. This is actually, hang on, let me show you guys all. This is actually my beach vibe shirt. And I found this a couple of weeks ago, and it made me think of Sarah. Oh, I'm sorry, baby. And it's you. It made me think of Sarah because of how much she loves the beach and beach vibes. And I know her and I would have been so simpatico on that. And I have my button on that you gave me on Saturday. I have the other one, my purse handle. So Michelle organized a standout. She's done several. This was the first one I was able to attend, and it was from noon to 7, and it was over near the property where the person of interest, let me grab that here for y'all for a second, and then we'll come back. So Sarah has been missing. As most of you know, we've been working with Michelle, advocating for Sarah for either her safe return or, sadly, we have to say it, the return the return of her remains for her funeral. She's been missing 2 years. It's not good. Michelle has come to terms with how good it is not, but it's always hard for me as a former law enforcement officer, social worker, victim advocate. I hate talking about the possibilities of the longer a case goes out, the less the possibilities are for a safe return. And now we're more into a recovery. And I'll still be, pray every day that's not the case, but I know that I have to be honest with my audience and with everyone. And Michelle and I have talked about this. So she has now been missing 2 years, a little over 1 month. And most of you know that, whoops, let me go back to that. That's not what I wanted. Hang on a second, guys. This is my other case. Let me pull up the right one. I was just showing all of the different people that we stand for. When we started the show tonight, I wanted you to see all the different ladies that we're standing for who are either missing currently, like Sara, or who are no longer with us, and we're advocating for justice for them, that their abuser and the person who unalived them gets arrested and charged, which everyone we're standing for, that's not the case right now. So let me quickly say hi to everybody who's with us live, and thank you so much for joining us live. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your interaction in our live area for talking and conversing. They call it the chat box on YouTube, but I like to call it my friend box, because everybody who's willing to stand for victims of domestic violence and for victims of any homicide who needs justice, you are my friend for life. And I appreciate you all so much. So I call it the friend box conversation area. So welcome everyone tonight. Hi, Deidre. Welcome back. So good to see you again. God bless Hannah. Yes, thank you so much. And hi, Jessica. It was great meeting you the other day. Yes, it absolutely was. I'm so happy that I got that chance to meet all of you. Hi, Marie. Yes. Oh, yes, thank you. Yes, that's what it was. Hey, Nick, welcome. Great to see you in our friend box area. It was so good to meet you in person as well the other day. And I'm sure some of my other subscribers are with us. I don't ever feel you have to be in the chat box. It's not necessary. I just welcome you to be here live. And then if you come up with a question, you can always put it in the replay conversation area that's on YouTube. When you go back, if you go back to watch it in replay for any reason, or you tell someone else about it and they watch in a replay, if you have a question or a comment, you can make it in there too. So I know myself, when I go to live shows, I don't always like to converse in the chat, because then I get distracted and I miss some of it. So, but I do appreciate those of you who do, because it really helps us to have a flow of conversation when you ask questions and make comments in our friend zone. So welcome to everybody. Now let me see I see what happened. Let me get this back to the beginning. Hang on just a second. I was going through the whole deck, and at the very end of Sara's deck, I have all the other people that we stand for. So let me fly back to the beginning here for Sara. And okay, there we go. There she is. All right. So as you guys know that have been following the story with us, Sara disappeared on somewhere between March 2nd and March 3rd. We're thinking more like March 3rd because of all the activity that Michelle was able to garner from her social media and from her iCloud. This is the person of interest. So whether he likes it or not, he is a person of interest. And this is not something we're making up. This isn't something Michelle made up, or Michelle's fans, as they call them. She doesn't have fans. She has advocates that are supporting her, people that are not happy about all of the publicity that Tyrone has been getting. We can't help that. We can't help that he made the decision to go to a party at approximately 1:30 in the morning and meet up with Bubba and Sara. That was on you, Tyrone. You did that. So when you did that, you now are part of what happened to Sara that night, just like Bubba, Tisha, and James Schaller. They were all part of what happened to Sara, because they are the last group of individuals to see her alive. But we still think there might be more that we're just not getting the information from, because the sheriffs are still investigating this, the Marion County sheriffs, and they are only able to give us so much information so they don't compromise the investigation. Now, I personally, and Michelle, she'll speak to this too, we do believe that there is a high possibility that the father of Sara's daughter, Cora, is involved. And Michelle, do you want to kind of tell everybody why we think that?
Yeah, I mean, obviously Joe had been stalking Sara for many years, but I don't believe that he's just involved because he stalked her. So 26 days after my sister went missing on March 29th of 2023, Joe had a conversation with the owner of the hotel where he worked at a meeting at a McDonald's. He seemed like he was upset and crying, was her explanation, that he was saying my sister was not alive, that he didn't do it, but he knew for a fact she was not alive, but he didn't want the owner of this hotel to think he did it. Well, he immediately left the interaction. He totaled his vehicle. And then later that evening, he was arrested for a different crime, for an assault on a 75-year-old gentleman, an Asian male who he gave a brain bleed. And while he was about to be arrested, he was asked by just one of the officers in small talk what brought him to the Ocala area. Well, he consequently said, "Oh, my daughter," and kind of leaned forward as if he was saying something more happy to him. But then he said, "Oh, I left her mother when she was pregnant." And then he kind of goes, "Is that recording?" And the gentleman shuts the kind of body camera off. But we have to remember, let's say 8 hours prior to that interaction, Joe was saying my sister wasn't alive, and he seemed distressed. He seemed visibly upset and crying, but then he shut it off like it had never happened at all. And the way the owner recounted it was, it's almost like someone was reliving an act of something they witnessed or happened, not something they were physically upset about, like as if he knew what happened. She felt as if he had harmed my sister. But in the interview with the officer, he doesn't have that same capacity going on. He's not saying, "Oh, her mother's missing, this is why my behavior's off." He's not even using that as his excuse for his temperament. So it just doesn't match the timeline. And then on the way to the jail to be arrested, he asked the officer if he'll delete content photos out of his phone. And we don't know what those photos are. Also, he seemed squeamish in the car on the way. And that could have been something as simple as a screenshot to show that he knew where Sara was, or he had arrived, or something from one of those individuals. So that is one reason I feel like he's involved, and because of a data trail. So somebody tried to get on my sister's Snapchat the very day she went missing, but not until the later afternoon, 1:47 p.m. Well, because that code came from Snapchat.com, not from directly from her device. Anybody could log on remotely. Right. The code went to a 2017 email my sister used. Well, when I was accessing my sister's devices using different email combinations and phone number combinations to verify, it did the same thing to me several times before I got onto one of her more recent accounts. Well, somebody would have had to be putting in old information. I don't believe that Tyrone, James Schaller, Tisha McDermott, or James Robertson had that ability. I think they would only known the current information Sara had, because Sara had changed her number on January 29th of 2023, I believe it was, because Joe was, as Sara stated by text, creeping on her devices again.
Yep.
And then we speculated, the roommate said that her shoes that I found later were in the photographs. They knew when they were getting all my sister's stuff together, when she saw the photos, that the same shoes were inside of the residence. Right. But when I went to the residence in April of 2023 with the detective, when he walked around the home and then had me come in, I noticed that my sister's binder was missing of legal documents made of Joseph. We're talking about a 3-inch, 4-inch binder of every device she ever had with original documents. Right. And her hairbrush, toothbrush, and then my niece's documents my sister kept in the same bag in a manila folder showing my niece had a name change by age 1. That was also missing. So I don't believe anybody that was at that house party would have taken any of those items. And my sister's roommate is a veteran. She used to be in the service. So she was on a veterans women retreat out of town. She came back within the 48 hours of knowing something was off with Sara not responding. So whoever, if Joseph entered that home, would have only had about 48 hours to take those documents and items.
Exactly. Okay, let's surmise all this. That was great. Thank you, Michelle. That was wonderful. Thanks for enlightening us all with that. So I'm in agreement with you on all of it. So Joe, first of all, the fact that he's talking about stating to someone else where he was working, he was the manager of this hotel in Ocala, and this was actually his boss, right?
Correct. He's the owner and his boss.
Right. So if he's going to be speaking out that I know Sara is dead, I mean, think about that. Think what statement that is, and what does that mean? Like, how? Okay, so how do you know? How do you know this?
Right. It's the main question. Like, how do you know 26 days after she went missing? But it's also a question to the public. How does he know before the first missing persons flyer ever even went out? He's made this statement on March the 29th. And March the 31st, Marion County Sheriff put out the first missing persons flyer that had the image from the gas station. So even I didn't know what had happened to Sarah 26 days after she went missing.
Exactly. Hannah, anything?
Yeah. I mean, I'm in agreement as far as the motive. I just want to know why Tyrone Mormon won't answer where he took Sarah that night.
Oh, well,
whenever he took her.
We're going to circle around to that. Just give me a second. I want to keep going over Joe here.
But the motive is clear. Nobody else cared about those documents or had motive to remove them from the apartment.
Correct. And nobody else had the ability to spy on Sarah like Joe did. And he'd been doing it for years, and it was proven. So it was proven that he was stalking her via her social media and her phone.
And when Michelle stated
logging on through her Gmail account directly. Now, if this had happened a week later, like the access to the accounts, you would have said Joe's just crazy. He's been a psychopath his whole life. He is clinically obsessed with Sarah. He's just being nosy. But it all happened. The access for that Snapchat happened the very day she went missing. Almost like someone had trashed her phone and realized there was something on that Snapchat they didn't want anyone to see because her Gmail timeline had already been cleared. But they didn't get on the iCloud because iCloud is harder to get onto.
Well, and you said that she changed her number the end of January.
And email.
And email. So he was very much probably still capable of, like she said, spying on her. He knew where she was. He had not lost his complete control yet. When he lost his complete control and he no longer had access to stalk her, that's when his motive to really do something looks like it would, I just hate thinking about it, but it's
escalate. Yeah. I think he was escalating.
Sarah also had a screenshot in iCloud showing a Snapchat account that appeared to be Joseph following her on February the 4th. She took that screenshot and she changed the name to Dahlia's papa, and he does not call my niece Dahlia. He only calls her Cora. So that tells you that Sarah made the edit before she made the screenshot because he made a fake profile and was attempting to get back on her stuff.
So it just proves the motive that, for me looking at it, that once he was not able to keep the tabs on her that he wanted, he wasn't able to, have any kind of control, even if he thought that she didn't know, like that could have been what, made him snap all the way. But I think that him being a person of interest in other cases, I think he's just a very evil person in general from my research that I've seen.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is something interesting too. The fact that he had this meltdown. First, he tells the owner, his boss, that Sarah's dead. Then he gets in a car accident. Immediately after that, right? Is that how it went, Michelle? And then he beat up this gentleman. So
right, as soon as he pulled out of the parking lot of the McDonald's, he crashed that vehicle. And then by that evening, he was attacking the gentleman.
Right. So you're looking at what can be considered by psychiatrists and psychologists a narcissistic rage. And narcissistic rage can be brought on by several things. It can be brought on by someone saying, "I'm done with you. I'm leaving you." This is when the woman is in the most dangerous position to leave an abuser who's also a narcissist. Is when they have said, you have no more control over me. I'm going to leave you," or they lose control by another means. Now, if he did unalive Sarah, or if he knows who unalived Sarah, he has lost his whole deck of cards because he used Sarah to manipulate and to get money from her, to constantly squeeze her for money and to get his narcissistic high. And he was so addicted to her. So now she's suddenly gone missing and he has no more control over her. Rather, he did it of his own hand because he lost his temper with her that night on March 3rd, or someone else unalived her, or she was unalived by an OD with these partiers in that house at Reddick. And then they panicked and they I hate to say it, but they disposed of her.
Right, but based on the statement, he's acting as if he knows something happened. So it's either through stalking or through his own personal knowledge, because he was already withholding my niece from her too. So Sarah wasn't getting to see her daughter as of February 2nd on. So he was also withholding her.
Right. So
I remember, Michelle, you said that she had I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you. Michelle, you had said that I'm sorry. You had said that Sara said that night that she had a certain amount of money and that she was wanting to try to bribe, basically give Joseph some money in order to see Cora.
So Sarah's exact statement was, so Sara hadn't gone to work about, I think, 2 days before this work shift. And when we had a, Facebook, whatever, phone conversation, because she would kind of call me in between Facebook Messenger and phone call, Sara said that she, on her next work shift, was going to go see Joseph, and she was going to show up uninvited with all the money she made at work. She didn't specify an amount to me. And I kind of said, that's dumb. He only wants money, Sara. Like, do not do that. It's not safe. And she's like, Michelle, I have to see Dahlia. I have to make sure she's safe. You know what he's capable of. You don't know what he's capable of. Kind of like she had to physically put eyes on her daughter because he was already withholding her. It had already been a month. And she's like, oh, that's what he wants. So I'm going to basically make that happen. So she said she planned to show up uninvited with all the money she made at work. That was her intentions when she went to work.
And several of her coworkers backed you up on that, correct?
Right. We did have some coworkers that said they had conversations with her at work. She never really discussed like Joe's name probably all the time, but she did discuss with one of them about going to see him, kind of to barter to see her kid, because barter was the word she used. And then, but never really said where he worked or what his name was, just kind of like her child's father.
Right. All right, let me get to the chat and our friend zone here. Thank you, guys. I just wanted to read some of your questions and comments. So Nick, who is a supporter of Michelle, advocate for Sara, he was at the standout. Why is that cop not being questioned about what and why he wanted that stuff deleted? About why, right? So that's something you and I have discussed about trying to go back and talk to Sergeant Sheely about that whole night that Joe was arrested and what went down with this police officer.
Right, kind of emailing to Sergeant Sheely and redirecting him back to that because he was not the sergeant during this whole case. It's only been a few months now. So kind of redirecting him back to that footage that I obtained for maybe him to kind of go back through himself and then go, okay, well, maybe I, as the sergeant, need to now ask the officer if he remembers what he was asking him to delete, or if maybe the officer's body cam, since it shows that he's kind of doing this on Joe's phone, but you can't see the images, maybe the body camera caught those images and they have it on their internal stuff.
Absolutely. And if not a lot of police departments now, well, I shouldn't say a lot because I don't know the numbers. I'll get those numbers for you all for next Wednesday. But many police departments, because I know this much, are starting to use social workers like myself to work at police departments and help with understanding domestic violence, so that when they do these domestic violence calls, they can not only keep the woman or the man, depending on who the abuser is, safe, but also keep themselves safe, because many officers are killed on domestic violence calls. They're killed on accident type calls where they go to an accident scene and then they end up getting hit and killed. They are killed by pulling people over who have weapons and don't want to be arrested or have warrants, and they're killed in domestic violence. Those are three major ways that police officers lose their lives in the line of duty. So they are hiring social workers now because social workers are trained, and those that have master's degrees are trained at the highest level to understand many mental health disorders, and including the narcissistic rage and narcissistic syndrome, which is now considered a mental health issue and actually, an epidemic of some sorts. So if that officer that night would have understood a little bit about narcissistic rage and would have seen the signs that Joe has just had 3 meltdowns in one day, yelling at his boss, saying that he knew Sara was dead, getting in a car accident, and then beating up an elderly man and getting arrested for it all in one day. That is not normal behavior. It wasn't even normal behavior for Joe, right?
Right, but because you also have to remember the missing person flyer had not gone out yet for Marion County Sheriff, so the officer would not even have known Sara's name. And Joe didn't mention that Sara was a missing adult to him in any type of active conversation on the videos I have. So the officer wouldn't have had anything to go on anyways.
So even at that point, you don't think that the officers in the station knew that this woman was missing, that your sister was missing?
No, because they didn't put out the missing persons flyer until March 31st, 2023, days later.
Right. But I would think that the people in the department prior to March 31st knew that they had a missing persons case.
No, because even months after that, when I was dealing with the sheriff's department, they didn't know who my sister was.
It's a problem if they deleted stuff out of his phone.
And we don't know if he did make the deletion, but the officer did state if he was allowed to, then he would.
That doesn't even sound right. If somebody's going to jail, why would you be like, I need you to delete something out of my phone? Why? That's not suspicious at all.
The question would be why. You would think he would just like, oh, I can't do that, and tell the next officer, like, hey, there might be something on that phone that's pertinent to something, if he's wanting us to delete it because he seems nervous. But they probably thought they were only there to arrest him for the assault and battery of the 75-year-old. And if he wants something deleted out of his phone, maybe he thought he had the right to do it.
What happened to the assault on the 75-year-old? What happened with that?
I just want a quick throw. I'm trying to go through the questions here a minute, and then you guys can do your bantering back and forth. Let me get through. There's not too many. Deidre says, I remember hearing him say that after you write those names and numbers, you can delete them.
But that was after he said the photographs. But it was after he was writing down names and numbers. I think he was getting something out of his phone, but he wanted photos deleted.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm Deirdre, remind us what you were saying bingo about. I'm thinking maybe it was when I'm talking about narcissistic rage. You may know a little bit about that. A lot of people that have had family members or who are victims themselves of narcissist relationships, not those that even end in any kind of violence, but just living with a narcissist with their violent rages, and they're yelling and they're shouting and they're threatening to hurt you, but they don't. There's many people that live with that as well. It doesn't go to the level of hitting or death, but it's constant verbal abuse from those that suffer from narcissism. So anyway, I'm sorry to interrupt you guys with your banner. I like to get to the questions that everyone's sharing with us. And then Deirdre says, remember Nadia stated that Tyrone's too busy stealing.
Nadia did say that in her live.
Yeah. What was that about?
I don't know. Maybe they mean my sister's money. I have no idea.
I missed that one.
Yeah, I did too. I'm like, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that because sometimes.
Well, there was a second live, but she's deleted it.
Oh,
did you get the flyers put back up today?
I did.
Of course you did.
And then the one I hammered in the ground, it's not been deep enough because it's just kind of hard surface where it was. So Bobby Laredo, who's a DJ out of Ocala, actually happened to go by and see that it had like pushed over by the wind, or maybe somebody just pushed it over instead of taking the second one. So he actually hammered it in the ground and sent me a video. And he said that's kind of like, that's what the community does.
Right. So before we get to the standout and then what happened to your signs, I wanted to circle back around to Joe again, because Joe really hasn't been talked about a lot because the police have not been issued him as a person of interest, which I find incredibly bizarre because of everything that we now know just happened that Michelle just enlightened you on, which was shortly after Sarah went missing, the days before the missing flyer. Joe's behavior is in a narcissistic rage. Then he continues to not allow the family to see Cora. He just takes over control of Cora like he already basically had been doing. But now he's got full control because Sarah is missing and no one knows where she is. And then he proceeds to move her, right, Michelle?
Right, but he sat in eviction for about 4 months before he moved.
And that was at the hotel.
Right.
Palace Suites, where his behavior was more bizarre. He was occupying 2 rooms when he was only supposed to be occupying 1. There's a police report of burglary where he turned off cameras and security footage while he was cleaning out the rooms. He also, I think twice he did
cleaning up the rooms when he did that.
Oh, that was when he rekeyed.
Yeah, when he shut off the power and the security systems, he had a key that he kept for the office. So he basically broke in without force, used the key, shut down security systems and power, and then he rekeyed room 119, and then he kept them out of it, even though all they asked for him to do was move his property out that they found he had in the room. Because the hotel was under position to think that room had been rented for 9 months, and it wasn't. Joe had his own possessions in the room. And rather than just moving them over to room 121, which is large enough to move all the property to it, he rekeyed it. And then he spent that 3 months cleaning and moving stuff before he was evicted.
Yeah, and that's not suspicious or sketchy behavior whatsoever, right? And the thing that really upsets me about this, Michelle and Hannah, is whenever a woman goes missing, most logical people. And sadly enough, and this is not fair to all good men out there, but because of, if you saw my intro where I showed you some stats and facts about domestic violence, and I showed you the pictures of all the women that we're currently advocating for their families, 62% of the time when a woman is unalived, it is because of her husband, boyfriend, fiance, ex, or ex. Okay. So 82% when a woman is unalived, it's someone she knows. You're talking a huge amount of percentages here. Women just don't get killed like men do. It's just not the way of the world. So why did they not immediately look to the father of Sarah's child, where you would have been able to provide them with all this information? And Joseph Mayton would have been a huge suspect right out of the gate.
It's because when I sent the well check out to the hotel to make sure my sister wasn't there, being like held in a hostage style situation without her cell phone, because sometimes he wouldn't let her use it, Joseph told the responding officer that Sarah was a prostitute addict that disappeared all the time. And when I was contacted after that conversation, I told the officer that wasn't true. And the officer just kind of said, well, she's such a good mom. Why doesn't she have her kid then? Because at this point, she had been forced to sign custody over to him. But it didn't matter what I say. It didn't matter that I said there was abuse, stalking, and the previous everything. He had the potential to harm my sister. The officer didn't care. So we can't even put this on the detective of Marion County because he wasn't even assigned until 10 months later. But that responding officer did not give a badookadook about my sister or the situation or anything I had to say. So the case was not taken seriously within the first 10 days at all. It was just seemed like she was a missing adult because that's what Joe said. Joe led them to believe whatever he wanted, and they went with it.
And
So
that's a real problem and a real collapse of training at the Marion County Sheriff. The next time I talk to them, I am going to ask them to please consider having a domestic violence specialist come in and train their officers, because all officers should be signed. Saw what happened with Gabby Petito, because that story went nationwide news. Again, I'm always taken aback why one person's story of domestic violence and ultimately domestic violence homicide goes viral and another person's doesn't. I've always been, and I go back in journalism. That's my first degree. My first career was in journalism. And it always upset me and amazed me how people get chosen to be like the chosen ones. And that's nothing against Gabby or her family or the horror that her family went through. But there are so many missing women right now who are supposedly supposed to be alive and with their families and happy, but they're not, because they're missing because their husbands unalive them. But we don't have enough evidence to arrest them and convict them. But we know 100% that the husband or the boyfriend or the fiance in all these cases did the deed. And so the fact that they did not even consider that Joe was the one who was lying, manipulating the police, and all they would have had to have done, they could have checked his background. He should have been a person who was right away because of their hostile co-parenting situation, which had they asked questions, they would have known right out of the gate. So this whole case was mishandled from day one, believing the word of a disgruntled ex-boyfriend / father of her child.
But you got to remember the Gabby Petito case may not have went the way it went either if it had been for the Sarasota Police Department, Northport Police, whoever handled that, who went out to dispatch to his parents' house. Because if you watch the documentary, you'll see that the department where her family lived out of state is the one that pushed the narrative. They're like, don't you think this is odd that they're not letting you talk to him? Don't you think this is odd that they're not letting you, you know what I mean? All this stuff is going on. They're not concerned. If that department from out of state had not pushed it, it would be sitting just like this Marion County case, because Northport, Sarasota didn't think there was enough to bother the family. If you watch that documentary. It took a different officer going, yeah, I'm not letting it go. And it wasn't their jurisdiction, but they weren't letting it go.
Right. Hannah, I just muted you when you're not talking because I'm getting feedback for some reason tonight. So that happens sometimes when there's three of us in a studio.
I had my fan on. I turned it off, so hopefully it won't be an issue anymore.
It's something else tonight. I'm not sure what it is, but when you're not talking, just mute yourself. That's all.
Okay. I just want to say that it's not a statistic. It's something that I see in real time. I'm here in Springfield, Missouri, and I don't even know if they've released names, but I know yesterday at an apartment complex, someone unalived someone and then unalived themselves in front of 3 or 4 children. And these are children all under the age of, like, I want to say they're all under the age of 8.
It's daily, guys. I mean, I already know of 3 more domestic violence homicides in the last 2 weeks. I mean, it's literally daily that this is happening. We just don't hear about them. Let's see, it's Deidre. Oh, and Deidre, Michelle, I don't know if you saw that I put up there. Deidre says, I have the second live. That's the thing about social media, people. You got to be very careful what you say and how you say it and all that jazz, because people can screenshot you and video and save you just like that. So
Well, no,
I don't know what that
like
means.
Deidre knows I'm working and doing stuff, so she's proactive like a couple other people, and they just need to record it just in case I don't have it.
I got to mute you, Hannah. We're having some really bad feedback tonight. When you're ready to chat, just unmute yourself and then mute yourself back when you're done with your chat, because I don't know where it's coming from, but it's definitely coming from the feed. You can try to go out and come back in. Sometimes that will do it. Give that a try. Deirdre, I have to take my glasses off to read. So Gabby is where I am. Oh, yes, right. Long Island, New York. Yeah, that was just a tragic case. And again, if the police had just had more training on the signs of domestic violence, they would have never allowed her to be anywhere, to be out there in that park by herself. They would have you can't technically contact parents when someone's over 18, but she could have given permission. They could, if they would have, I think she was so on the edge of being done with it all that they could have easily, kind of sweet talked her, for lack of a better way to put it, into letting them call her parents. And then her parents would have, flown there immediately and helped her drive home. That whole thing was such a travesty and could have been, what should have never happened, because she should have been protected by the police when they made that traffic stop. And that one really, that hurts our hearts for sure. Any woman that is unalived by her boyfriend, husband, or loved one, it hurts our hearts. It's just extra on top of any other kind of homicide. Hey, Deborah's here. Great to see you. Add her to the stage.
Yeah, I'm taking a quick break at work. I'm hiding in the break room. So,
Deborah, thanks so much for coming. It's so great to meet you virtually.
Yeah. Hey, Michelle.
So, everyone, Deborah was the. Do you want to why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, my dear?
Yeah, my name is Deborah Ritchie. I was Sarah's roommate. Give you a little backstory on that. I had just gotten out of a really bad divorce and I needed help, let's face it. And simultaneously, unbeknownst to me, Sarah had been trying to get roommates, and guys were, they wanted to have sex or whatever. So Michelle had posted for Sarah to look for a roommate. I reached out to Michelle like, yo, I'm not going to try to have sex with her, and I need help. She needs help. I had my daughter's my daughter's 30, so about the same age. So then we all met, and I guess probably about an hour, Michelle chit chatting, and then was like, dude, sold, and she moved in, and it was like 4 months later. But I mean, just in that little bit of time, she did so much for me.
I also want to thank you for your service to our country. I know that you're former military.
Oh, my pleasure.
So much. Can you tell us what happened? What it was? Walk us through what happened when you got back from your retreat, or maybe tell us what the arrangements were before you left for your retreat. Let's start there.
Okay. So Sarah and I both would kind of go out of town every once in a while. And if one of us wasn't going to be home, the deal was that we would call my friend Lonnie, that he would he kind of was a guy down on his luck, you know. So I'm not going to let nobody not work. You know, what you do with the money is your business. But if you're willing to work for it, I got work. You know, again, like you said, I'm a veteran, so there's a lot of physical stuff I have problems with. I didn't have a truck, so we had to go to the dump, you know, and he would do little things like that, $20 here, whatever. Watch
Yeah.
the dogs, come let them out and all that. So if somebody wasn't going to be home, she had his number. Either she was like, okay, I'm leaving, so Lonnie, Deb's not here, or vice versa, you know, so he would know to come over and take out my dogs. Um, this particular veterans retreat I was doing is called a soldier ride, and you know, riding bicycles, not motorcycles. I have to do a recumbent because of my back, but with 300 people, I mean, my dog would have kept up, but he's my service dog. But there was just no way for his feet, you know, and everything. It wouldn't have been fair. So I left him home, and I have a 3-year-old lab, and I had a 2-year-old. Well, come to find out, it was a shepherd wolf hybrid, beautiful dog, but he was going to be trained to give to someone else as a service dog. So I got 3 dogs, 2 of which were trained, 1 was still a pup. And my service dog was with my mom, and the shepherd and my lab, which he would bite people for no reason, just to kind of give you a little, oh, hey.
This is my new service dog. This is Tanner. He went to his first standout. He was at his first standout on Saturday with Michelle and her Sarah's soldiers, and he was a good little buddy.
Oh, he's cute. Is it a poodle?
Pardon?
Is he a poodle?
He is a Bernedoodle, so he's a mini mountain dog and a mini and a toy poodle. But he just woke up, so I thought it was a perfect opportunity since you're talking about your service dogs.
Yeah.
And he got to stand out for Sarah. Yeah, I'm gonna get him some type of a little.
Give him a little T-shirt that says that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get him a little.
I make T-shirts. You buy the dog shirt, and I'll print it for you. All that.
All right, you got it. And actually, I want to talk to you about that. I got some ideas for shirts as well, so I want to talk to you about that. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Continue.
But anyway, the shepherd wolf breed, he was very protective. You know what I mean?
Sure.
If a guy walked in, my next door neighbor used to come over and give me like tomato plants and all the time. Like he knew him. And if we were landing on the car one day just talking and the dog just went by, bit him right in the butt cheek. Just to kind of give you a background of the dog. Okay. So, but he wouldn't have, he had never went to the bathroom or he was housebroken, you know, whatever. I come home and there's 4 piles of dog shit in my room, in my house. That was my first cue. Like,
what time did you get home? What time did you get home, dear?
Well, it was in St. Augustine, so it was probably 3 o'clock in the afternoon because we had breakfast and all that jazz, you know.
Was that the 4th of August? I mean, 4th of April?
March.
I'm sorry, March.
March, yeah. I'm the one with the brain injury. Don't confuse me. But no, so yeah, my first clue was, I mean, to be honest, I was kind of pissed, you know, like, I thought she knew, and like, we're going to have a discussion when she gets home. You know, thought the deal was with the dogs. So I had reached out to Lonnie and I was like, did Sarah tell you she was leaving? And he's like, no. I said, well, I came home and there's dog shit. And he's like, oh yeah? Well, I'll be right over, because he would help, you know, clean up and whatever. Mind you, the other dog was in the crate with no water, no food. I'm surprised there wasn't feces in her crate after the fact, you know. But while I was waiting on him, I walked out, smoked a cigarette, looked down, full pack of cigarettes, with a lighter on the table. So that has me thinking. I walked back in the house. She has them damn shoes.
I have a question for you. Sorry to interrupt. This is sort of important. You got home on
Uh-huh.
March 4th. You got home on March 4th, right? In the afternoon?
Sunday. Yes.
Okay. And Michelle, Sarah originally went out on Friday night, March 2nd.
She went out on March 2nd, and then she had her photos until March 3rd.
Okay.
And then Deborah had messaged me on the 4th when she couldn't get a hold of Sarah.
Okay, so
Right.
this means that the last time that those dogs would have been attended to would have been prior to her getting the ride from Lonnie.
Right.
Can you mute again, Hannah? We're having feedback. I'm sorry.
So yeah, around 10 p.m.
Right. So she would have it's okay, buddy. She would have let the dogs out prior to getting picked up by Lonnie and his girlfriend, which would have been at approximately 10-ish, right? Is that our timeline, Michelle?
Right. Sarah got home after 7 p.m. So around 7:40, she walked the dogs.
Yeah, that was her thing. Because I can't do a lot of walking with I had a gunshot to the hip. And that was her first. Do you mind if I walk the dogs? Like every day. Can I walk the dog? I'm like, girl, walk a little hard out. No, you know. So that was her thing. You know. Always took them. So they would have either been outside with her or she would have went outside with them.
So prior to her leaving Lonnie, picking her up and taking her down to the gas station, that Circle K, the dogs would have gone out at approximately, let's just even say 9 o'clock. She might have let them out one last time at 9 p.m., right? And that's on the 2nd.
Right.
We don't think she came home, but maybe she did come home because of the cigarettes and the shoes. So maybe she let the dogs out again at that point, which would have been, if it was Tyrone that brought her home, it would have been approximately 4:15, maybe. Let's just say approximately, because that's all we know from the timeline and the GPS. So then she might have let the dogs out then. So because here's the thing,
he wouldn't have been able to come onto my property. Tyrone wouldn't have. The dog would have bit him.
Then let's say he dropped her off and he didn't come on the property. So Sarah's home now at approximately, this is all theories. Sarah's home now at approximately 4 a.m., 4:15. I mean, they have her on GPS with Tyrone at 4 a.m. So it probably takes from the gas station to the house, Michelle, 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So
if that.
Yeah, let's say she gets home at 4:07. Okay. And she lets the dogs out. And then Joe shows up because he's been stalking her throughout the night and he knows where she's been, that she's been with Tyrone, because I think Joe and Tyrone know each other. So sorry, we're having feedback. Deborah, can you try to turn your volume down a little bit?
Yeah.
Thanks. We're having a little weird feedback in the studio tonight. I'll ask StreamYard. I always ask them in emails why these things happen, but I'm just saying this because you just said that the younger dog, the 3-year-old dog, that there was no number 2 in that dog's crate.
Yeah, none.
I've had dogs since I was 21. I don't know a dog that could go from 7, let's say 9 p.m. until the afternoon of the 4th without going to the bathroom.
Yeah, unless because she had no food or water, there wasn't nothing to
I don't know.
expel. But even at that, it's still iffy.
That concerns me. That to me that means something, Deborah. That there is no way that 3-year-old dog is going to hold it, even if he didn't eat or drink after 10 o'clock that night. If Sarah never came back home, if she was disappeared from the gas station, never came back home, that means that dog was in that crate from approximately 10 o'clock, 9 to 10 o'clock on the 2nd until you got home at 3 in the afternoon on the 4th.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Not
and the other dog pooped, but now at the same time, now that you say that, Could it possibly have been that both the dogs were out? That's why there was so much poop. And then somebody came back to my house and put the younger one up because she automatically knows that that's where she goes. And at the time, she was only one.
Yeah,
So,
I think that might show that Joe was at that house either once or twice. He was either there to get Sara and take her from there after Tyrone dropped her off, or Tyrone never dropped her off there, and Joe unalived her somewhere else, came back to the house before you got there, took the book, took the toothbrush, the hair, everything else that Michelle listed. Because I think your second dog, the young dog in the kennel, is a witness, is a key situation here, because there is no dog that I have ever owned since I was 21 that could hold pee and poop. Sorry, audience, but let's get real here. From that amount of time on the second till the fourth when you got home, somebody was in that house. I'm positive of it. So have we? Did the police know that? Did they know that have they ever talked like this about the dog not defecating in the kennel?
Yeah, I mean, I told them when I had made the police report, it was the Monday after. Because Sunday I had, was looking, trying to figure out, waiting just to see if, I don't know, she was just being, I say a kid, but, I'm 52. So to me, it's, a kid being a kid, slipped her mind or whatever. Because at the end of the day, they are my responsibility, not hers,
Right.
But just knowing her personality, I don't think so.
Serious at that point. They weren't even considering that she was unalived by anybody at that point. They were still considering that she just took off, that she was just went away and went with friends and didn't tell anybody.
Yeah. And then when I had heard back from her at all, that's when I had reached out to Michelle again, be like, have you heard anything? Because I haven't heard anything. And that's when I found out about her getting into the truck with the Cowboys. And I was like, oh, well, what Cowboy? I don't know. Well, when was that? Kind of thing. And so I said, well, I'm making a police report or a missing persons report like right now. She said, I'm on my way. So, she came over to they told me that day, and I quote, call us back on Friday if you haven't heard from her yet. I said, Friday? It's been 3 days, well, now 4 days since anyone's heard from her, and you want me to wait another week? I said, no, I'm not doing that.
Not even that. They tried to make Deborah make the report in Alachua County because she worked at Cafe Risque in Micanopy, even though she didn't go missing from the club.
Right. There was that back and forth. I didn't know which police department to even call.
Another agency is basically what we're seeing here. They're trying to dump it on another agency. They don't want to deal with it.
Yeah. So that's when Michelle and I kind of got together.
It's only because Deborah kept calling and harassing them that they even took the report, because they were just acting like she's an adult and she can go missing if she wants to go missing.
Right.
So with lack of avocation, she was doing everything she was supposed to be doing.
Deborah, you did great.
Yeah,
you did great.
They came to me, I want to say, like 2 weeks, maybe?
Well, April the 23rd is when they came to your house, or 22nd.
No, like before that. Remember, they gave me the report. There was a piece of paper with like tattoos and all that stuff, and I had to call you because, I don't know. I don't check her from head to toe or nothing. You know what I mean?
That is true. She asked me if there was any. She was like giving me the questionnaire over the phone and having me answer it so she could fill it out.
Right. And I turned that in, and then it still was like another week before they even came out to my house. And he didn't even act like he was really interested. It seemed like it was kind of going in one ear and out the other. Even to the point because I told Michelle, I said, listen, there's 4 little Sutter home wines empty on the floor. Like the case had been knocked over or just whatever. But her room was clean. She said, go look through her stuff. So I did. She asked about a bear in the envelope. I said, nope, not seeing none of that stuff here. So, you know, tried to tell that to the police. He didn't want to listen to that either. And it just kind of got me to the point to where I kept saying, after I had made the original flyers and I'd put them up at the Circle K and the mini mart across the street, and I used to work at the Post 102 and the VFW, you know, Georgie's bar, just kind of like that little area, you know what I mean? And they had reached out, James reached out to me first and said that it was his house that they had went to, you know, and blah, blah, blah. So he was like, she just kept texting on the phone and texting on the phone. So when I went back to the detective, I said, well, why don't you guys pull her cell phone records to see who she was texting? I know you can't see the actual test, but, you know, the phone numbers. And I got told time and time again, there's no evidence that a crime is being committed. Over and over for months. So it got where I got pissed and I said, listen, streetwalkers and dancers are the number 2 people that get abducted, sexually assaulted, and killed because nobody cares about them. So yeah, this is kind of more important than the average rich kid down the road that hadn't showed up in a week. I mean, not that everybody's not as important, but you know what I'm saying? Like, she is in the statistics of people that become missing and murdered. And you're acting like
first of all,
there's no crime.
Anytime anyone goes missing, the police should never assume, first of all, that they took off. That should be the last option if you figure that out. Do a thorough investigation and you eliminate that they were hurt or that they died somewhere because they were walking home and they fell or they hit their head, or I mean, my God, what is this world coming to? What is policing coming to if we're being so lazy that first we're trying to pass it off on another agency and then we're trying to just say, oh, let's just give her a week. Maybe she's out having fun with her friends, which is the most crucial time to look for a missing person is
the first 48 hours.
So what in the F is Marion County even thinking of? And who were these people? And why did it take so long to put a detective on the case? These are all huge questions that somebody higher up needs to be addressing for Sarah's case. Even if we find her within the next week, or if we never find her, God forbid, they need to answer to how they handled her case. This
absolutely.
Is disgusting to me and despicable. And I appreciate you so much for sharing what was said to you, and Michelle has given me the highlights of this, but hearing it from you, your own mouth, it's really helpful to me as the advocate and the person trying to look at the police mistakes in Sarah's case. It just makes me so angry, and it breaks my heart that had they done even 1 or 2 things differently, Sarah might have already be back with her family, whether she was unalived or not. They would at least know what happened to her. And it's just, I'm just absolutely flabbergasted that they told you to wait till Friday.
Well, yeah, they told her that. But then when I, spoke to the detective at the house when they finally came out on, what was it, April 23rd or whatever it was, you know what I mean? It was like, well, we don't know, Sarah's just not missing because she wants to be missing. She's an adult. And I was like, there is no way that my sister would just go off social media, as addicted she is to social media like anybody else. That, you know what I mean? At that point, we didn't know all the non-account activity, but we knew that Sarah wasn't calling anybody. Sarah wasn't on social media, and they just did not hear what I had to say. And then when they called me into the house after he walked through, you know what I mean? When I noticed the stuff missing immediately, Deborah may not have noticed it as quickly, but I'm like, where's her stuff? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He didn't seem concerned. And when he got the one toothbrush that was there, it was like a plastic one. He took that.
Yeah, like a hotel toothbrush or something.
And I said she might have cleaned her shoes. She might have cleaned the floor. She might have done anything else with that toothbrush. But I don't feel like there's any way she put it in her damn mouth, because Sarah was so eco-friendly. She Now, it's possible that if she left her bamboo charcoal toothbrush at someone's house, maybe she went to the Dollar General one day and just got one because what if?
Right.
The evidence. She also had like the little eyebrow cutters for your hair and stuff. They didn't take those into evidence.
Mm-mm.
I would have, you know what I mean? Follicle.
Everything else that would have had a good DNA was mysteriously gone.
Well, not even that. So by the time the detective came, Deborah had Mel come in, you know what I mean, at their house. And it was a debit card from Bank of America for Sarah that she had ordered before she went missing. So that meant she no longer had her debit card. She didn't have a working debit.
Right. And they should have taken everything you said in those first few hours and days, both of you as the sister and the roommate who knew her well and knew her behaviors and her patterns, that this person, this woman, Sarah, is not going to walk off and just not call her family, not tell anyone where she is. That should be the very first thing they should have taken into account was, hey, this family does not believe this woman would have done this. We better get on this right away. Because
well, not even that. At the same day that they're at the house, I provided Detective Stith with the photos from James Schaller's cell phone that he sent me. That meant he hadn't even interviewed them yet, because I had the photos and all I did was say, hey, do you have any photos? I know my sister had to have taken photos. You had to have taken photos of a girl hanging out with you guys, not to have evidence that she was hanging out. And he said she used his cell phone while hers was charging because her phone died. And she took photos on his thing, and he provided the date stamps and the photos. And when I gave him the Detective Stith, he's like, oh, can you text message those over to me, like each picture? Like, so he had not even asked James Schaller any questions like that. And he's the detective. And somehow they acted like it was a problem that I became Deputy Do-Right. You know what I mean? Because they weren't doing their job. I didn't just take over his investigation.
Right. And what
he wasn't doing anything.
Right. What family member is going to sit by and do nothing? Sorry, Michelle. No family member is going to sit by and do nothing. You have nothing to apologize to anyone for. You did exactly what was in your heart to do to protect your sister. And I believe any family member, and I've met many through the last 9 months, 10 months that I've been live streaming of the advocating that I've been doing. And all these families are doing what you're doing. And they've all been accused of interfering with police investigation. Well, then do your damn job. That's what you're hired for. That's what you're getting paid to do. The families shouldn't have to be spending all their money and all their time doing your damn job. It's disgusting. Sorry, Hannah, anything to add?
Not real excited about the email the governor sent back.
Tell everybody about that, Hannah.
Well, I know my mic is getting like feedback, so
go ahead.
I've been contacting them, and I got a very generic email. That looked like they probably make them for, I don't know, everybody. They just stamped the Marion County information at the bottom. They also thought that I was Michelle. Because I copied and pasted everything, but I was telling them I'm in Springfield, Missouri, and I care about Sara Ebersole. Do you care about Sara Ebersole? Everyone should give a damn about Sara Ebersole.
Oh, for sure.
I'm gonna mute my mic because I know it's giving feedback.
It wasn't ever since you left and came back in. It's good. It's clean.
Yeah.
I don't have any feedback.
Well,
no, okay. You're good, Hannah. It's all good now. So
I turned my fan off. I went with the updo. It's fine. I had to.
I'm at work, so
people also had to understand that Deborah's yard was fenced in. So had somebody came in and those dogs even attempted to bite or just thrust their body at them, the dogs would have been out in the yard, and they weren't. 2 dogs. One's in a crate, one's not, and it's not out loose in the yard.
But if there was someone with motive that knew about them dogs, that maybe was smart enough to bring some lunch meat,
they would have had to know. That's why I think it's Joe.
That's what I'm waiting.
Because Joe picked Sarah up from the house often. He never came in or did any of that, but he knew the dogs are there. They're in the yard. Sarah would have had to push the dogs back to open even the gate. He would have inquired about cameras, dogs, how aggressive they were, all of that with her.
But there's facts. I mean, I
And
don't know, but I'm just saying.
the puppy, she is very food driven,
Mhm.
and I'm sure Seeger would have been just as well.
If you are planning
Sorry,
something
I'm
and
mopping
you have a
while we're
rodent
talking.
That's
and you know
okay.
you're going to deal with dogs, why wouldn't you be smart? I mean, we can't underestimate his psychopath being, you know what I'm saying, at least somewhat intelligent.
Right.
Well, no, I'm saying if it was like Tyrone bringing her inside the fence to take her all the way up to the porch and open the door and do something inside the house, it wouldn't
that
make
doesn't make sense.
he wouldn't know the dogs were there.
Yeah. And Tyrone would have got bit straight up. Joe may or may not have if
So where do you live at?
they had seen him before.
Is it a
But
house or
Tyrone
an
would have got
apartment?
bit. I'm sorry?
Is it a house or is it like apartments?
No, I was a trailer on 2.5 acres,
Okay,
and an
so
acre of it was fenced in. So
it would be safe to say that there was no close neighbors that would have heard commotion.
yeah,
No, there's right across.
yeah.
Say that again.
I have neighbors right next door and across the street. And the guy across the street, didn't he say he had cameras? I wasn't sure if he did or not.
Yeah, he nosy because even when we had search and rescue out there, he came out and was talking to him.
Okay.
But he would have been nosy at 3 a.m. He'd have been
How
sleeping all
important ring
day.
cams are. Ring cams on our doors are extremely important.
Yeah, but even if
I can't.
a ring camera wouldn't have caught from his driveway to her driveway anyways, because he had a privacy fence and his driveway was offset to her property. So he wouldn't have been able to see.
We were kind of like catty-cornered. Yeah.
Well, I think that the detective and the sergeant need to be made aware of the fact that the one dog needs to be reminded or aware. Maybe they never even wrote it down. Who knows what the hell happened those first 2 days when they interviewed you? They weren't even thinking that, like, Sarah was in any danger at all. I think they need to be reminded of the dog being in the kennel and not having defecated in the kennel. That's huge. That means that dog had to have been out of that kennel sometime between 9 o'clock on the 2nd and 3 o'clock on the 4th. There's no way that dog could have stayed in that kennel. There's just no way.
Right. Unless, sorry, I'm just putting my mop bucket up. Unless, like I said, all the dog poop that was in the house was from both the dogs, and then somebody put her back.
Right, but that's what I mean.
You know what I mean?
In order for no dog poop to be in that 3-year-old dog's kennel, somebody let that dog out of that kennel at some point. It was either Sarah after she got dropped off by Tyrone, if maybe he did drop her off at the gate, but then why isn't he telling us that? Tyrone, if you're listening, Tyrone's family, if all Tyrone did was simply give Sarah a ride from Bubba's house to her house because the dogs wouldn't have liked him, then why aren't you telling us that? Why is that such a difficult question to answer? I don't understand.
People have to remember that James Robertson said he carried her out unconscious with Tyrone. So something happened at that house, even if she was alive and breathing. And maybe they slipped her something and she wasn't deceased at that point. But something sexual in nature or something had to have happened that Tyrone knows. He doesn't know where she is now, even if he did drop her off. You know what I mean? Or maybe she was flighty and she was out of it and he's not sure. So he's not going to give up the information because that places him last with her. So when she's located, all they'll have is him if they can't get a warrant for Joe. But even no matter what he did or didn't do with her, consensual or non-consensual, at this point, she's been missing 2 years. It's time to give it up. We don't give a shit. Was she dropped off or not? And was she breathing when he dropped her off? So they can move on to that warrant for possibly Joe.
Exactly. And that's what
we're
with it. And but I really do.
Ladies, I hate to cut in, but I got to get off here and get the otherwise y'all are gonna hear toilets flushing and vacuums going.
Thank you so much, strong warrior.
So,
we appreciate
you're
you.
welcome.
we'll see you again. And thank you for everything. This was really extra helpful tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. I do what I can.
Take care of
All
yourself.
right, Michonne, take care. All right, bye.
Goodbye, dear. All right. Well, what a great lady. What a great warrior for the for her country. And obviously she was a friend with Sara and loved Sara very much. And this gives me some new insight, Michelle. I'm sorry, but somebody was at that house. There's no way that dog was in that kennel from the 2nd until the 4th. There is just no way. So who was at the house? It's anybody's guess. I mean, she totally feels and believes that if Tyrone had gone back to the house with Sara and something bad had happened there, and then they took her, and then he took her somewhere else, he would have had to have put the dog somewhere in order for him to get in that house, because she made it very clear the dogs were friendly to him because they didn't know him.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like, for instance, when I would come up to my sister's house to pick her up, I would come up, the dogs would start barking and lashing out, kind of jumping all over the fence, like a playful jump, but kind of like you didn't know if they're going to bite you jump. It was just kind of like, okay, get down, get down. But Sara or Deborah would have to come open the fence and kind of call him back and push him back so you could walk in. And when you got in the fenced-in area, because I had been there several times, they would just kind of like barrel and hit you in the back, like both, paws to your back shoulders, almost knock you over, like equally back and forth, like almost playfully. And they never bit me, but I was aware that they had the potential to nip sometimes when they were kind of stalking behind you. But I would always kind of let Sara lead, and she would kind of try to call the dogs in ahead of her.
Yeah. So then there's no way Tyrone didn't come in that fence. I just don't buy it.
But I've always said that. It's why I don't know why his family's so hostile. They keep saying, oh, you think Joe did it, skip to Joe. We can't skip to Joe until Tyrone says where his dumb ass dropped her off. Right. Like, I think we're past the point of going, oh, maybe he did or didn't. He did. He drove his ass for a piece of catch or snatch or whatever he thought he was going to get that night, left his baby mom and his kids, at least after 1:30 a.m., and drove over there.
Yeah.
Nobody
was definitely there. He was picked out of a lineup, and Tisha saw him.
They're trying to act like line didn't happen, but the records we have show that James Schaller, who had been in jail for almost a year, called him out of a lineup, that's the guy. And everyone that's watching now will go, well, why didn't he say his name? He didn't know his name. Tisha and James Schaller had never met Tyrone before, but Tyrone was always friends with James Robertson. And now we know from Nadia's Live, Tyrone's sister, that she was friends with James Robertson.
The circle is circling. They all knew each other. There was a connection between everybody. And why, like you said, there's a reason why he doesn't want to say where he drove her, but it's absolutely, I posted something to your Facebook the other day about the accuracy of current modern GPS. So Tyrone's family and friends, you have to stop harassing advocates that are trying to find Sara. We are not the reason. We have no fault in this whatsoever that Tyrone made a decision to go to Bubba's house that night and to hang out with Bubba and Sara. That was his decision to make. That put him then in this story, whether he knew what was coming or not. No one knew what was coming, but he was physically there. His phone was physically texting with Bubba. He was GPS coordinated there, and their phones were coordinated at the Circle K again at approximately between 3:30 and 4 a.m. So you can't deny that. That's science. You have to quit standing up to science and saying this isn't true. Well, it is true. This is what's true. And Tyrone, it's time for you to tell the truth. This is never going to stop. People are going to, the advocates for Sara's soldiers are growing by the day, and they're going to continue to grow by the day. Nobody's going to quit looking. If you think that your family would quit looking for you, if you went, because that wouldn't happen. Your family would never stop looking for you if you went missing. So you cannot expect Sara and now Sara's soldiers, all the advocates from all over the country, to stop looking for Sara, because it just won't happen. So you and Joe are going to be in the limelight. You're going to be in the media. You're going to be on these live shows. You're going to be on Facebook for the rest of your freaking lives. And that's not a threat. That's just truth, because nobody's giving up looking for Sara. She's a mother who deserves to be found. And it's an absolute crying shame that you have people in your world that are willing to stand up for this nonsense. It's 2 years and 1 month. It's time to just tell the freaking truth once and for all and deal with whatever the fallout is, because that's what adults do. We take accountability for our actions. We stand up when we've done something wrong and we admit it. And if you didn't do anything wrong, if all you did was drive her, then tell us where you dropped her off. And then this goes away for you. You're out of it. Then we can completely go full force focus on Joe, because we know Joe's shady. We know he stalked her. We know he did all these things. For Joe not to be in this, to me, is impossible. Joe is in this up to his eyeballs. He knows it. We know it. The cops know it. But you're in it too. And we have to figure out, we're going to never quit until we figure out why you won't tell the truth. So get used to this, because this is it. We're going to keep covering Sara's missing persons case. We're going to keep covering Cora and making sure she's okay, no matter how many DCF complaints we have to file and how much track of Joe we have to keep, because we know he's shady. We know he doesn't deserve to be the father. That's our opinion based on evidence. This is not us making this shit up. We don't make shit up as social change warriors. We read police reports. We read autopsy reports when we have them. We interview witnesses. We talk to the police. We go to the police and meet with them. We talk to school teachers. That's what we do here. We're not just here to point our finger at you. We do the research. We find the evidence, and then we state that evidence and we state that research. And we're going to keep doing that until Sara is found and returned to her family, and Cora gets to see her aunt again and the rest of her family, because she is literally being held captive from her family. How is that okay with DCF? And they tell us that that's not part of the reason we can remove a child from a parent's care. I am not an advocate for removing children from parents. I'm an advocate of removing children from bad parents. That's what I'm an advocate for. And by all intents and purposes, Joe is a bad parent. The proof is there. The police reports are there. The DCF complaints are there from state, Kentucky, Florida, 3 schools, nurses, doctors. What's it going to take to move the needle for the Department of Children and Families?
That part. Michelle, I have a question for you, because you just told me about it this week, but I wanted to know if you could explain about the Sara's shells for Sara. And then I also wanted to know if you could update us on where you are with the billboard, getting the billboard put up.
Hey, Michelle, before you do that, because I have a slide for shells for Sara, my dear, and I want to so before we do that, I just want Michelle to tell us a little bit about her standout, because we wanted to talk to Deborah, the roommate, while we could, while she was available to us. So Michelle organized a standout for Sara, and this was the second one of its kind. And go ahead, Michelle, and tell us about it.
So we, did the standout protest from 12 till 7. That way it would give people a time to come intermediately throughout the day, which we did. We had people come, they showed up. You know what the saddest part about this is? I obviously have a pretty large family, siblings and all. Not all my siblings are out in the free world. Some of them are incarcerated and stuff like that. But we have local family in Florida that's local within a 3.5 hour, 4 hour range. And none of my family members were at this protest. Most of them have never even truly checked in. Most of them don't even share the sheriff's department's posts about Sara, not even mine, just even the sheriff's department's. And other than like followers and friends that I've met through, or just, kind of like that, and obviously you were there as well, the girls from the club came, the women from the club that socialized with my sister on a daily at work. That's who showed up for her. The other people that are used to getting victimized and treated like shit because of what they do for a living, when they don't fall in a realm of what people think they should be, that's who showed up for Sara. Those girls stood there before and after their shifts. Some of them had their children waiting out in the car, even if they could stand for a little bit before they had to go, because the kids, they didn't want to put them in an unsafe situation. They were there for Sara. And you know what I mean? That's big to me that, all the people my sister valued her time with and her friendship that she grew up with, not one of them has ever shown up for Sara. So I appreciate those people. But yeah.
I'm sorry, Michelle. First of all, I'm sorry that it's not right that that your family's not showing up for you, because you are the living right now. You are trying to do all this work, things on your shoulders. So I'm sorry that your family, but I am happy that you have all these soldiers for Sara, and that the girls that she worked with, and I agree with you, we should never be judged by what we do for a living. If we're out there making money and we're doing it legally, then we are just as valued as anyone else. And the fact that I feel that might be part of the reason why her case was put off was because of what she did for a living. If she was a doctor or a lawyer, would you have looked for her sooner, Marion County Sheriff's Department? Just wondering.
I mean, if she had been a swimsuit model and in the same realm of showing her body for money, they would have looked for her sooner.
I didn't get a chance to meet everybody because I arrived for the second shift. So I was there from 3 to 7, but those that were there from noon to 3, I missed some of that. But I want to thank all of you showed up, and that showed up for Michelle and support for Sara, because this was about awareness. And we had so many cars because the University of Florida had their spring game that day. So this location was so busy, and it was a tad scary at times. I mean, these people fly on this one. But we had a lot of beeps and honks, and then I needed to rest my neck and my back for a little bit. So I got in my car and I drove circles around beeping to try to get other cars to beep. And that helped a little bit too for a while, because I couldn't really sit or stand any longer. So I had to think outside the box of how I can continue to stand up for Sara. So I just drove around and made U-turns and beeped every time I went by to get the cars to beep. But a lot of them beeped. And I noticed that if we waved, that really helped too. Waving was really helpful. People would wave back if they didn't want to beep. Some people aren't into the whole noise pollution thing. So, but if we were waving at them and holding our sign, they waved back or they beeped. And many actually stopped, right, Michelle?
Right. And then we found out from, just neighbors throughout the whole entire road coming in and out. Some didn't look happy, and some were happy that we were there. Some asked questions because they wanted more context of why we were in that general area. They didn't realize that the person of interest lived down a roadway near them. That was their neighbor. And some of them said they had seen, a U-Haul for 3 different days moving stuff from Tyrone Mormon's property. So it does appear that they're moving, but they do own the house. They do not rent this house. They own the house. Kathy, your audio is cutting out.
Thanks.
I've seen what you shared on Facebook about the property situation.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll follow up. But I wanted to go back here to the text messages just a minute, because there might have been some questions. So Deidre says, obviously her message was coded to Michelle that she didn't really know the people she was with. Cowboy clue for the hat in video, and planning on taking a ride was her clue to Michelle, so she knew. Right, absolutely. And that's what Michelle has always stood by. And I agree. I think she sort of might have known them, might have recognized them. That's just my take on it, just from the familiarity of all the photos, that they weren't complete strangers. But that's how
she was with anybody, though.
What?
That's how she was with anybody, though.
Yeah, I know you've said that.
It's like her job. That was her job, to canoodle with people.
Right. So Deirdre says, I'll finish her sentence, and planning on taking a ride was her clue to Michelle, so she knew her plan. I believe she had those type of conversations, you said, right, Michelle? Yeah, and that's
right. That's why, because she wrote random when she said, I'm taking a ride with some random cowboys. Random was written in all capitals. It wasn't like the rest. So she was just letting me know she didn't know them, that she was getting in the ride, and they were cowboys. Those are all clues.
Yeah. Yep, definitely. Marcia, welcome, Marcia Marie. Glad to have you tonight. And you're talking about Deborah's animals. Her animals are very protective, especially Ranger. Yeah, it sounds like it. So I really don't think that. I mean, the only way, if Sara would have invited Tyrone to come back to her place, knowing that her roommate was gone, and they were going to go hang out there after leaving Bubba, then she would have had to have corralled the dogs to get Tyrone in that house. Now, that could possibly explain why the puppy didn't go to the bathroom in the kennel, because if he didn't come back to party there, then Sara would have had to have got the dogs off to the side to get Tyrone in the house, and then the dog would have been outside for a number of hours, possibly.
No, Sara didn't have anybody come over inside of Deborah's house. That was just a rule to respect boundaries. Sara didn't have anyone come over, ever.
Right, but she might not have had a choice that night if they drugged her or if they gave her something to the fact.
But I'm saying Sarah would have willfully been hanging out inside of the house with people is what I'm saying.
Correct. But we know that she was carried out of the house according to Bubba. So she wouldn't have been super conscious.
I'm talking Deborah's house.
Right. But I'm just throwing theories out there. That
and I just know my sister does obey rules when it comes to that. Like, if just like the whole respect the boundary thing, if Deborah asked her not to have random people in her house when she's not home, my sister would have been like, okay, I won't do that. If she asked her, hey, if you're going to go out of town, you decide to make last minute plans, call Lonnie and have him watch the dogs, my sister would have done that.
True.
She's not your.
Saying that if she wasn't with it, if they had drugged her at the house in Reddick, she wouldn't have been with it enough, Michelle, to care about boundaries, is what I'm trying to say. That would have put Tyrone in the house, and that might be a reason why he's not telling us where he dropped her off.
Yeah, I still don't think Tyrone would have made it in the house with the dog, and I still don't think the dog that was loose in the house would have still been in the house.
Right, probably not. But somebody had to come to that house at some point, because the 3-year-old dog is now the key clue. That somebody had to be in that house between that morning hours and the time that the roommate got home, because that 3-year-old dog would have never lasted in that kennel for 2 days. There's just no way.
Well, right. And that's why you probably have someone trying to access her Snapchat at 1:47 p.m. Because that's probably after they dumped her phone and then they realized there was something on Snapchat that they needed to get rid of, because Snapchat would have shown a timeline map if her location was on. And we know the location was on because her iCloud was on.
Right. And that was all going on the following day at 1:47 p.m. So it's very possible if Joe's involved.
Not the following day, the same day she went missing.
Well, March 3rd during the day, not in the morning hours. This person tried to access her Snapchat on March 3rd in the afternoon.
Right.
Yes. But it was effectively the second day of her not being at her home, because she left her home on March 2nd. We're not sure she ever made it back to that home.
Right, but we know she was alive at 1:22 a.m. because she was taking photographs and videos.
Right. She was still alive on March the 3rd, for sure. So Deidre says, I want to know where they're hiding the car.
They got rid of the car.
And how long after, Michelle, did they get rid of the car?
Just a few months ago, they got rid of it. Maybe over a month ago.
Okay. And the car was never checked, correct?
No, they only got the warrant for the house and the cell phone to look for the cell phone, even though the Mormon family claimed other things online. The prosecutor's office didn't issue a warrant for the car because at that point in time, they were using the car. It was deemed personal property.
Man, just more.
The warrant was for the cell phone. It wasn't for an act. They didn't have a body. They didn't have a crime. They didn't have evidence to prove a crime. So they couldn't get a warrant for the car.
But here's the thing. Once they did know that they were together based on the GPS phone information, then they knew that he gave her a ride in that car. Then they should have been able to get a warrant for the car to check for any blood.
Right. But like you said, they already knew she was in the car. So it wasn't relevant evidence for the prosecutor's office. This wasn't Marion County Sheriff. This was the prosecutor's office that did not allow Marion County Sheriff to get a warrant. They said too much time had lapsed at that point.
Well, that's a mistake too. So
it is a mistake. That is what happened.
So the prosecutor's office, now we know, also made a mistake in your sister's case, not just Marion County Sheriff's.
Correct.
Deirdre, is there a way to track the VIN number to try to find out where that car is today?
Yeah, I can run the tag and have the VIN and the title within less than 20 minutes and run a Carfax and know exactly where it was sold and what salvage yard, unless it was sold private party for parts.
Well, I mean, at this point, if you think about it, so every time we've all bought a car, right? How often do we detail the hell out of a car we've just bought? Does anybody do that?
Well,
maybe somebody with OCD.
She had the car very well detailed. She made a post on her social media page.
Who did?
Shayla, May of 2023. She tagged a company in Ocala and said that they thoroughly cleaned her vehicle, spotless.
Why would you do that?
Forensic files. I don't think a car can be cleaned enough. I'm just going to put that out there. I think it's still worth tracking down that car.
I agree. Because
But again, it wouldn't matter if I tracked down the car. They still would not take that car into evidence.
But we could get permission from the new owner.
But we don't know that it hasn't been crushed and dumped. And I am going to reference Ryan on this. So Ryan Spivak was the gentleman that may or may not have been misidentified by Tisha McDermott based on how he looked and stuff like that. But Ryan was investigated mainly because I kept pushing the issue with Marion County Sheriff when she did a possible identification before we knew about Tyrone and knew that James Robertson knew him and gave his information a name, and before they had evidence against Tyrone. Let me say that. But either way, when I reached out to Ryan Spivak, like I did every other Uber person, because James Schaller and Tisha McDermott didn't know Tyrone's name, and they knew my sister was texting somebody as if my sister had a ride coming that wasn't Tyrone, and maybe Tyrone showed up first. So I contacted all the Uber people saved in my sister's Google contacts because I digitally got access to them. Ryan Spivak was the only person that did not respond. Everyone else did with time frames, everything. And then later I found out Ryan Spivak had actually blocked my number. And even though Nadia claimed on her live, I can't talk about Ryan Spivak, that's not true. Ryan Spivak took me to try to get a restraining order because of his information being on social media. But he was also on social media because other people had Uber rides with him that went in a not so negative way, in a sexual way, and other things, that they had placed his information online for a year before my sister went missing. But either way, I found Ryan Spivak in my sister's contacts. When we finally had a conversation, he said he didn't know her, never drove her, never met her. We found out later from the girls at work that his number was hanging for rides for hire for like a taxi service inside the Cafe Risque inside the club. I found the Uber receipt from her email 5 months before she went missing where he drove her. My sister had screenshotted conversations with Ryan Spivak. So 2 weeks before I got a hold of Ryan Spivak, he had already, blocked me at this point anyways. Ryan Spivak junked his car. I went to the junkyard after locating where it was, and they wouldn't let me buy the whole car. They wouldn't let me do anything. Marion County was telling Alachua County to kind of leave it be. They didn't want anything to do with the car. And I kept pressing the subject just in case Ryan Spivak was involved. I felt like they couldn't let potential evidence go, because once his car is torn apart and fully done, it's just going to be crushed. So that's Ryan Spivak on the screen. And they ended up going, they wouldn't tell me they did, but they ended up going to the FDLE and they took possession of Ryan's car from the scrapyard. And they did do forensics and they found some substantial things in Ryan's car, but we don't know if they were relevant to my sister's case. And in court, I got Ryan to admit that he did know Sara. He had drove her before, like my evidence showed, all the above, even though he lied to Marion County Sheriff and me. So he would have still had to been in question and he would have still had to be investigated. Now, the photo on the right is when he was much younger and arrested. The one on the left is more so what he would have looked like. He also had long hair. He also is Native American. He's mixed as well. He's Navajo and white, and he's a lot thinner than that in real life. I can't hear your audio.
Sorry, I forgot to unmute. You can see why Tisha why we could have possibly thought Ryan was the one that picked her up, because they both had longer, dark hair, taller and skinnier, mixed race, biracial. So that's how he was brought into it. And he lied.
It's because I sent the photo after she gave the description when I went looking for people in her devices. This is the only one that even remotely had information saved, stored. He was a contact. He was all of the above. And she mentioned he had a large tattoo, the person on their arm. Well, he has a tattoo sleeve as well. But now that we see pictures of Tyrone when he had long hair before he cut his hair, he definitely fit more of the Mexican description and the 29-ish description, because Ryan Spivak is in the 40s to, late 40s.
Right.
But and they both cut their hair. They both had long hair and they both cut their hair. So either way, we know now that Ryan Spivak might have been misidentified, but Ryan Spivak also lied about knowing Sara, meeting Sara, all the above, which no one made him do that. He chose to do that.
Exactly. And again, why would people lie? Why would you lie when you know someone's missing? That doesn't make sense. That's shady. And that makes you suspect right there, that you're lying about knowing this woman when you drove her from the club and you've driven other dancers home from the club.
Right. And we can't say that he just didn't know my sister by Sarah and he only knew her by Jacqueline because of the club, because I sent a photo of my sister when I asked if he had ever drove my sister through or outside of Uber. And I sent the same message to each Uber driver. So I did win the restraining order. The restraining order was not granted against me. And no, he did not have an attorney, as Nadia Lofton claimed. So that's all lies. And Marion County Sheriff asked to be a part of that court hearing for evidence.
Yep. Deidre said they find minuscule things left behind. Look at the Long Island serial killer case. Also, right by me as well. Fight for that car, please. Yeah, I agree. I don't think it could hurt to go after that car at this point. And
I still can't make them take it into evidence. I don't think that's what people understand. I can't make them take it into evidence. I fought for probably a month to get them to take Ryan Spivak's car into evidence. And the only reason they did is because I followed through with police reports.
Again, maybe the person who owns the car now, given that we tell them that this car was involved in a missing person case, maybe they would give you permission to do to light it up and look for any kind of evidence that could possibly still be in the car. It's been a long time. It's been 2 years and 1 month. I don't feel hopeful about it, but I don't think it would hurt either to circle back around with the detective just to remind him that Ryan was maybe misidentified. But again, why did he lie? What was the reason for the lie? What was he trying to cover up, or what was he afraid of?
I don't think he's ever given that information, because Ryan was also seen in local bars saying how much he loved my sister and stuff, even after she went missing. So there was just a lot pointing fingers at Ryan. But the only reason we thought Ryan was still involved when Tyrone's name came out into the public was because Marion County used the timeline of midnight with Tyrone Mormon at the beginning. And I knew that Sarah was taking pictures at midnight. So I knew that she have been with Tyrone at that moment, and maybe Tyrone was just going to the gas station and passed the house because he would have had to pass it and got caught on the GPS around that time. But then Tyrone's family obviously lied, and himself clearly, and said that he never left his house. But now we know that's not true. He lived 5 miles away, and they have much more information. So that's the only reason why I thought it was still Ryan and not Tyrone then, just so the public's aware of that.
Right. So we have pictures of Bubba, Tisha, and James Schaller all admitting, Bubba admitting before he died, and Tisha and James Schaller admitting early on. They were obviously with Sarah. They took pictures. They partied. They were together. Then we have two people that lied about knowing Sarah. Tyrone lied that he wasn't there at all. This person lied. Ryan lied that he knew Sarah, and Joe refuses to cooperate and is withholding your niece from you. These are not actions of innocent people. Innocent people do not behave this way. So I would love to be able to have a conversation with Ryan and just have him admit why did you lie? What were you afraid of? What was the issue of Sarah gone missing?
And we never even got that out of Ryan in court when I was questioning him, because it was only Ryan and I in court. It wasn't attorneys. It wasn't anybody else's. Ryan, I, and the judge. That was it. Right. You know what I mean? And it was being recorded. So it was being documented through the court. But, Ryan recently got a DUI out in the Daytona area. So I don't know if he's been released from that charge or not. But he was also in the same car he claimed he no longer had.
Yeah, exactly. And he ditched his phone. He got rid of his phone in that car too. It's just not normal behavior. He got
rid of it in the car.
What'd you say, Michelle?
Yeah, he actually mentioned it in court that he got rid of the phone in the car. He kept the same number, but junked his phone. And I'm pretty sure based on that 31-page report, it does show a cell phone being listed as evidence in that report. So that would have been Ryan's. Right,
exactly. So Deirdre, are we making a list? Yeah, I always take notes during my live streams, but the live stream is the list. So it's always there in the library on replay. So if you ever want to go back, and if you forgot something, or if there was something you wanted to remind Michelle about or tell me about, you can always go back and re-listen to this live stream. It's in our library, and I go back frequently and listen to them to make sure I didn't miss something that I need to do or calls that I need to make. So thank you, Deirdre. Appreciate you so much. Thank you for being here. So Well, I think we've pretty much covered everything. This was all from before, things that we had talked about. And we never got a chance, though. You talked a little bit about you've talked about the toss the shells for Sarah many times. And I know that you order shells, and we always encourage people. But I think we lost our friend Hannah. I think she dropped off. If you're still out there watching, Hannah, thank you for coming tonight. Thanks for being here.
Well, Hannah asked about the sign. So I've already made the payment on the sign. I had to pay the $1,200 up front for them to start the process of doing the imagery. So they sent me back a confirmation of the image. And then that's been signed off on now. I'm not sure when the print's going to happen for it to actually go up. But as soon as they email me with the date of when it's going to go up, I'll let everybody know.
Great.
And we did have somebody else at the protest donate $400 towards an additional month to keep the sign up. And then somebody else donated $50 while they were there. So an additional $450 in cash came in to prolong the sign to be up instead of 12 weeks for an additional month after that.
Oh, that's good. That's good. And then this is just the sign that's behind us now that you can all see. That's just one of the other signs that Michelle put together with her own two hands with the wood and framed it. And how many of those do you have up right now?
So we have 6 of the 8 up, and the other 2 hopefully will go up sometime next week. So we have to go out in the Live Oak, Florida area, and in front of Jenny Springs are the last 2 locations. We just put one up in front of Martin Yamaha in Ocala, Florida, off 441 a couple days ago.
Okay. Hannah says I'm watching. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much for being with us tonight and for all of your contributions. And thank you for everything you've been doing, from writing to the governor to DCF to everything. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you so much. So I'm just looking at
$400 has come in to cover the first portion of the sign to go up.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I'm trying to find something I wanted to read to you, and I can't. Let me go to Facebook really quick.
And as for the shells, I don't order the shells. There is a local warehouse near the Crystal River area near me out in near the Gothi Forest. They have a bunch of shells like giant bagged in bulk, and I go back to their bulk area and I pick them out.
So you go back to the bulk area to get them?
Yeah, it's open to the public. They have a bunch of just shells for anybody to buy and all kinds of like little outdoor things. And then they have a warehouse in the back, and it's every shell of every kind in giant bags. And they're priced by how many shells are in there. I might say 50 cents to 70 cents per shell. And then there's 50, 40, 60, however many in the bag.
Oh, great. Great.
And then he
Well,
gives me like a 10-cent off discount sometimes because I buy so many. So it costs me between $30 and $40 a bag when I buy them. Sometimes I might get a bag 26, but it's usually 30 or more a bag.
That's wonderful. And I hope everybody will consider, whether you go to a lake or the beach here in Florida, or you live near a lake, and you can just write hashtag. What'd you say, Michelle?
Well, it doesn't have to be water where they throw them.
Oh, sure. Of course. I mean, I was just thinking, because of Sarah loves the beach, if you go to the lake or you go to the ocean. But yeah, she says anywhere. You can put them anywhere, wherever you are on your travels.
Literally in the forest, because you want people to find them.
Yeah, I love that. There's Hannah. I'm watching. I'm extremely grateful for everyone donating. And then any update on the signs taken down?
Actually, there's a big donation coming in too.
What'd you say, dear?
We actually have another large donation coming in as well.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love the generosity of people trying to help you find your sister. And Deirdre said, any update on the signs that were taken down today at the gas station at the Circle?
Yeah, so all we know is it was a silver Toyota SUV that pulled up with a brunette woman with tattooed sleeved arms that got out. She pulled around the gas pumps on the video and parked on the side curb and got out and removed the signs. But because she blocked the vehicle with the camera area, like the sign, the witness saw her placing the signs in her vehicle, but the camera doesn't show the sign going in the car because she blocked that part. But right there in between the two stores, there is a camera up on the side post, kind of up adjacent to the pumps. So you can see everything. So I went and put a new stick sign in the ground, and it either got blown over somehow for maybe not being deep enough, and or somebody knocked it over. So Bobby Laredo, a DJ in Ocala, Florida, actually lives in that area. So he went today and hammered it deeper into the ground and reset the sign for me.
Oh, that's great.
And he just noticed it down. So the public are now looking for the sign. So like he said, basically, this is what community does. So if anyone sees the sign there and knocked over, just place it back in the ground. But obviously, if it's completely removed, just let me know and I will put another one up.
And if it's completely removed, that's theft because that is your property.
Marion County would not take the report.
They won't take the report on the theft of a missing person sign.
No, they just see it as a sign. They don't care. But the store leaves the sign. That's how I know it's not an ordinance thing. It's not like the yard cleanup crew coming to get it. It's not the county taking it. This was somebody taking it because the store leaves that sign up.
Well, I'm going to have to call about that because there's money that goes into those signs and it's on a property that is giving you permission to put your property, then that's theft. If that sign has been damaged, that's vandalism. So I'm going to have to call them on that tomorrow first thing because that makes zero sense to me. And that's just, again.
I mean, it makes zero sense, but the witness is the one that called it in.
Well, so who needs to call it in? You?
It wouldn't make a difference because they wouldn't take the report. So that means they're not going to go out and dispatch anybody to look at the footage because there is footage.
I'm going to call him tomorrow. I'm going to call the sergeant. I'm going to call the sergeant or the detective, whoever I can get a hold of. Somebody needs to know that happened. And that, to me, that's destruction of property because that's your property that's been put on someone else's property that gave permission for you to put that there. So that then becomes destruction of property. I don't know what the laws are that different here in Florida than where I come from or where the rest of us come from, because that is what that is. It's the very definition of destruction of property. So
we have a couple other businesses reach out that have properties going down 441. One business is a dog in the dog industry, and they stated they have a kind of like a warehouse trailer, the like big storage containers on their property that faces the road. And they basically said that I can use that as a billboard. So if I can get another some type of sign made to go over it, like a canvas, we can use their signage too.
That would be great. That would be extra great.
So,
well, good.
So the next donor money that's coming in, we'll be working on that for additional signage. And those ones probably will have Tyrone's face on them since the Billboard company couldn't put him up because Marion County did approve. Let me make that clear to the Tyrone Mormon family. Marion County Sheriff approved that mugshot with Marion County Sheriff through it that I have online on the mock thing. They approved that to go up on the Billboard. So that's shows the public that if they were going to let it go up for 12 weeks and approve it, that they had no problem with me putting that imagery up, that they don't plan to take him off from being the person of interest anytime soon.
No. Yeah, obviously not.
And I was contacted by the Ocala Gazette today because Tyrone's mother reached out to them after that article.
Right. That's right. Now, have you heard back from them yet?
No, I'm sure I'll hear back from him tomorrow because he may not have made contact with Indy yet, but we're going to love to see what Indy's comments were because at the end of the day, Marion County Sheriff has put him out as the person of interest. I have done nothing more than what they have done. And if they're not standing on the doorsteps in Marion County, if they feel he's so innocent, I don't know why they're coming at me on social media, especially with the frivolous lies and stories that they've made up. They're lucky they're not sitting in a courtroom in a lawsuit with me.
Well, exactly, because Marion County has put this statement out 2 years in a row on the anniversary of Sarah's missing date. And he is a person of interest, like I said earlier, whether his family likes it or not. He made a decision to go to that house that night and to drive Sarah somewhere. And he is not cooperating with this police investigation. He has not cooperated. They say he's cooperated. No, he did not. He lied right out of the gate. And until he was forced to cooperate, he cooperated. And now, again, he's not telling the full story of where he drove her and where is Sara Ebersole. That is a question that he knows at least part of the answer to. I believe Joe knows the other half of the answer to that question. What did you do to Sara Ebersole? Where did you put her after you unalived her? So there are questions to be asked of these two men who are refusing to cooperate with this investigation and with the police. And we're not going to stop live streaming about this. We're not going to stop advocating for Sarah. Sarah's soldiers are not going to stop. And her army is getting bigger every day. So thank you, Michelle, so much for coming back on live. Thanks to everybody in our live tonight that cooperated and helped us out with everything and bared with my rants and bared with Hannah's rants and Michelle's rants. And it's Wednesday night. And thank you for letting us swear and not being offended. And thanks to everybody on replay. I really appreciate you. I know we end up with 200-300 of you, and we really, truly appreciate all of you that are willing to support Sara Ebersole and help us look for her. I also just like to remind everybody that we're advocating for Bring Betty Home. She is a missing mother and grandmother in the state of Missouri. And we love you too, Hannah. Thank you so much. And we will at some point again have more information about Betty's case for you. I have to reconnect with her family. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be, let me remove this.
Is the reward for Betty also being offered by her family, or is that being offered by authorities?
That's a good question. I have to connect with her daughter again, and I'll find that out. I'll let you guys all know next week. Tomorrow night, I'm going to be joined by Mizzy, who is the lead advocate in the Sandra Birchmore homicide case out of Canton and Stoughton, Massachusetts. So Mizzy and I have been in contact many times throughout the last almost year now. She has done equally what Michelle has done, and she has stood out, rain or shine, in standouts, social media posts, sending emails to the police. She never let up. She never believed for 1 second that Sandra Birchmore unalived herself. She believed that Matthew Farwell did the deed and then framed her for her own death. And that's exactly what he did. And they finally were able to get enough evidence to arrest Matthew Farwell. He was, this is dear, sweet Sandra Birchmore. She was 3 months pregnant with his child. He was married to another woman and had a child on the way from his wife. It is the deepest, darkest story that you can find, to be honest with you. He started grooming Sandra when she was a patrol. A lot of police departments have what's called the Explorer program, and they let kids who are interested in becoming police officers someday, or interested in the law, any job in the law, participate in this Explorer program. And the officers, obviously, the kids trust them. They look up to them. They're supposed to be the good guys. The guys in blue are supposed to be the good guys. This was not a good guy. And there's several other guys that were involved in this as well. His twin brother, possibly, his supervisor, possibly, Robert Devane, and then this other guy who was a school officer, who I don't know that much about, but I'm going to learn more about him when Mizzy joins me tomorrow night. I know a lot about the Sandra Birchmore case. She knows everything about the Sandra Birchmore case. So we're going to meet with Mizzy tomorrow night. These are the 4 men that should be in prison. Matthew Farwell is in prison, but he has yet to have a court appearance. And he was arrested in August, and he has yet to appear in court. There's been so many holdups with this court situation and with his trial. And Robert Devane is fighting his license being taken from him. And his brother fought his license being taken from him, but he has been unlicensed. And I believe Joshua Heel is also fighting, and I don't think his license has been removed from him yet. So we're going to find out about these 4 nefarious characters who all were supposed to be protecting and serving, and they were doing the absolute opposite. It's despicable. It's disgusting. Stoughton Police Department should be so ashamed of themselves that they let this go on right under their very own eyes for all those years. And I don't know what the heck steps they're taking to ensure this never happens again. But I believe Canton Police helped Matthew cover this up and frame Sara for her own unaliving. So we will be meeting with Mizzy tomorrow night at 8:00, calling out corruption. I hope that if you have the time and you'd like to join us and you want to add an advocacy to your list, that you'll be there and advocate for Sandra Birchmore and her unborn child and their tragic death. Thank you, everyone, so much. I really, truly appreciate all of you, more than I can say. Advocating for those that have been unalived, that are taken from their families by nefarious characters, always tragic, usually never good endings for people. This is not how life is supposed to end. Our life is supposed to end in God's hands by our age, or God forbid, a disease, or could be a car accident, but it's supposed to be an accident. People that take someone else's life are a whole level of evil that is hard for us to comprehend. So it's hard sometimes to stand for victims of homicides, because we have to think about this other world where evil exists and where people are so evil and they're walking among us, and there are neighbors, there are coworkers, there could be our teachers, our police officers, our firefighters, and we don't know it because they're so good at hiding it. They're so good at masking it. So it takes a lot of extra strength and empathy and just a lot for all of us that do advocate for victims of homicide for their justice. And I appreciate every single one of you. And thank you so much for supporting and subscribing to Social Change Warriors. And to all of Sara's soldiers, thank you for everything you're doing for Michelle. And Michelle, you just keep hanging in there. There are so many people that have your back, and we might not be your blood, but we don't have to be your blood to love and care for you and Cora and Sara. So don't give up. We've got you. Thanks, everyone.
Not an option. I think I've made that clear online. These people can search accusations and BS up as they want, which is pure bullshit, and they know it, to try to defame me in any way they want to make the public not look for Sara or care about Sara. But it's just going to make me louder. And when I put that little post up that I do it out of spite, I meant that.
That's all right.
Like, you hit the nail on the head there, buddy. Like, they should have probably stopped when they were ahead, because I will never back down.
Well, and the amount of harassment that you've taken from a family that knows damn well now that there is evidence that their family member was there and did drive Sara somewhere, and yet they're tossing all this hate to you when you're just simply following the lead of the Marion County Sheriff makes literally no sense to me. And some of it has been tossed at me, and some of it's been tossed at other advocates that have stood for you. This makes no sense, people. Stop attacking the people that are trying to find a missing mom. Sara's only crime in this world was that she trusted people too much, apparently, because she got involved with someone named Joe Mayton, and she got involved with people that obviously weren't that great of people to be around. And she should, and I wish she would have had a little bit more fear of people. That she was a good girl. She was a good woman. What she chose to do for a living, dancing at a strip club, who cares? People can do whatever they want to do. You don't need to judge them based on their living and decide if that makes them worthy of being found.
They shouldn't care, especially when you got Shayla Richardson knowing her child's father went somewhere, and she doesn't know what happened with Sara, but she knows he left the house to go meet Sara in some capacity, because there was an interest there of some kind. It wasn't just... No one gets up at 1:30 in the morning and just happens to be up and says, "Oh, honey, is it okay if I go hang out with this other girl? You know, I've never met her before. I just think she's pretty." What woman would say, "Go ahead, I'll see you in a few hours. Give me a break"? She's just as much to blame for the lying.
And I've seen hateful things said about Sara on Facebook, and you all need to knock it off. Stop saying hateful things about a missing girl. She was 26 years old. She had her whole life ahead of her. She didn't deserve this, and she needs to be found so she can have a funeral and have a proper burial, just like Jennifer Farborough-Dulas needs to be found, and Suzanne Clark Simpson needs to be found, and Ashley Elkins needs to be found. These are all women that were unalived by their husbands or their significant others or their fiancés. Now, Ellen Greenberg was found, but she was also framed for her own death, just like Sandra Birchmore. These are all unbelievable, unnecessary homicides of beautiful young women who had futures and lives and families because you decided you didn't want them anymore, because you decided that you were going to lose your crazy temper. That is just effed up, and you need to pay the price for what you did, and you need to be arrested for what you did. That's that. That's just it. That's the truth.
I mean it when I say this is going to be a documentary one day, and they all need to figure out who they want to play them in the documentary. So even the people that aren't the main players at all, like the little family friends of Tyrone Mormon that keep coming on with their chitter chatter willfully of their own regard on my Facebook, with everything from, "Oh, let's go search, but I don't want to walk on bones," to, "Oh, go dig your sister up," to all these little shitty comments. I am going to screenshot that. Let me make that clear one more time. It will be screenshotted and will live forever with a link to their profile, because they don't value human life, and I'm not going to value them in any respectful manner.
Sara did not ever hurt a single soul in this world. And for her to be unalived, whether she was overdosed by the people at that party, or she was hurt by Tyrone, or she was hurt by Joe, she was hurt by somebody. She's missing because someone hurt her, and she is probably not alive.
drive herself away. So she didn't vanish on her own. Somebody else part, and they're going to be responsible for the part they took. And I'm going to make sure of that. And if they want to make up allegations as if I'm some drug user and all this stuff, that's fine. Because I think it's a little stupid, especially with the meth comment they're now sending to people's inboxes. I just to make it very clear, I work for myself. I'm a 1099 subcontracted employee for multiple different companies. But
Oh, yeah. And yes, whoever sent messages about me to people's inboxes in Ocala, apparently, I am a volunteer. I am retired police officer, retired community social worker. I am a volunteer victim advocate. Michelle has not paid me a dime. I have not asked for a dime from Michelle. I ask for money for Michelle. I ask you to please donate to her signs, donate to her t-shirts, her posters, whatever it takes. I ask that of all of the families that I advocate for. And there are 13, and we have a new case that you will learn about next Thursday, where a young man was unalived and they framed him to make it look like he was hit by a train. And his father was in law enforcement, and it's from South Carolina in the same county as the Murdaugh case. So we are going to be working and advocating with that family now as a volunteer. And so the comments that were made to any of you in private messages from India were not true. I don't accept money at this point. I have a Cash App, and it's only for donations for program costs, not for a salary for me. And she seems to think we've gone viral. Well, Social Change Warriors has not gone viral, but I would not say no to that. I'll allow it, as Judge Bev says in the Karen Reed case, I'll allow it to advocate for Sarah and for all other of the victims that we're advocating for. Yes, hell yes, I would love to go viral, but that does not mean it's about monetary for me. I will never make a salary off of Social Change Warriors. It would, any money that we get will be program only.
I think the most disgusting comment that's been put out there so far, though, has been one of their family members said that Michelle is the only one that had anything to gain from her sister going missing. Like, what did I have to gain by my sister going missing other than me suffering daily? Like, because clearly their only power is deflection. And I'm just going to keep shining that little shiny mirror right back at their faces because this isn't going away. But to make such shitty comments like that, where someone's been missing over 2 years, that, oh, I would want her to go missing, or I'm going to, financially gain by her going missing. I think I'm pretty positive that I shared the $175 monetization that I made from Facebook for the month on social media.
Yes.
And maybe some monetization, but give me a break.
Transparent about all of it since the day I met you, which is, way back last fall. You've been transparent about everything. And I just so you guys know too, when I choose to stand for, I only have so much time in this world, and I also have my own health concerns. So I can't do this full time. I have to be very careful who I choose to advocate for, and I make sure and vet everybody that I decide to advocate for their case. And there's so many more that I wish I could advocate for. I wish I had a staff. I wish I was a nonprofit, and I would become a nonprofit. I would do it so that I could have a staff so we could take on more and more cases to advocate, because there is so much injustice out there. There are so many dirty cops working in police departments right now as we speak. It's mind numbing. It's literally mind numbing. So Tyrone, for you and your family and your little friends, your soldiers, to come after Michelle, a grieving sister, when her sister is missing and presumably now unalive somewhere in Marion County, not in a proper grave. Shame the fuck on you, because this is becoming ridiculous at this point, accusing Michelle of doing drugs and profiting off her sister's disappearance. It's sickening. Stop it. You all need to stop it. We need to find Sarah so she can have a proper funeral. So when her daughter comes of age, she can grieve for her mother and go to her gravesite. Do you not all understand the ramifications of this kind of trauma? While you sit there in your houses in Ocala and pretend as if you had nothing to do with any of this. Now, it's time to stop. You are going to stop eventually, because the police are going to make you stop. We're not going to quit advocating for Sarah to return her to her family and for Cora to know what happened to her mother. This is about a family and a child. If you were involved and you did something to hurt Sarah, you need to stand up and take your punishment. That is how it works in this world.
If Tyrone only drove her, why is he not talking?
Exactly. Clear your name, Tell us where you ended up taking her so we can start the trail from there to figure out who unalived her. There's not many possibilities. She was only with a certain amount of people in a small, tiny little area. This is not that much of a rocket science case when you look at it, when you come right down to it. So if you can tell us where you dropped her off, then the trail can start fresh from there. You have absolutely no reason not to tell us that. There's zero reason for you not to tell us where you dropped her off, because it's proven fact she was in your car. There's witnesses and there's GPS. Witnesses and science. Now let's go. Let's start telling the truth. And the family, stop threatening people. Stop threatening Michelle. The police are well aware of all your threats.
They can turn these tips in anonymously to the Marion County Sheriff. They can have their friend turn the tip in anonymously where she was dropped off. It doesn't even have to come from Tyrone directly. It can come from his little Pea Party members. You know what I mean? Like, at what point don't they want the heat off their family member? Don't they want the heat off their friend that they think I'm harassing? Because that's their claim. They're all being harassed and stalked and harassed and all this shit. Then take the heat off your family member and say where he drove her. Like, give it up already.
Exactly. Just tell the truth. And if you can't bring yourself to do it, then have one of your friends or family anonymously send in the tip. Where is Sara Ebersole? Where is she buried? Where is she? It's time for someone to tell the truth. And Joe, if you did it and you're part of all this, which I highly suspect you are, and if you're not, then knock the fuck off with your behavior and let Cora see her Aunt Michelle. Stop keeping this child from her family.
He's not giving his cell phone data either.
No, he's lying. That we had 3 liars in the disappearance of Sara. Ryan lied, Tyrone lied, and Joe lied. So you've got 3 men that knew Sara. That's 3 that knew Sara, that were in her life days before she disappeared. And there was a lot of suspect, a lot of crazy behavior going on. So we're getting closer. The police have to be getting closer. If we're figuring it out and we're getting closer, they have to be getting closer. And we're going to keep on talking about this every week with new updates, because there's always something new going on.
Yeah, I think Detective Stith is building a case, just like what I said online. They need more, because I know the public keeps asking. They need more substantial evidence to bring him in without his permission to arrest him. They cannot just bring him in by force to question him, interrogate it. This is not like Madlock or something. It doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? They have to have more, and they only get one chance to bring him in. They have to have something substantial. And we do know that Tyrone had a burner phone. That wouldn't be deemed like regular service of a phone. It was somewhat like a burner phone because he had that generic SD card in it.
That's right. And the police have to have enough probable cause to arrest someone. So they don't have enough, obviously. Joe would have already been arrested. He's not yet. Tyrone was arrested at one time because he lied, and they found out he lied. So that was lying to the police officer. That was interrupting a police investigation. That already happened. He's already served probation for that, and that's over. So there can't be a rearrest for that. So they have to have new evidence, new probable cause in order to make any arrests of any of those people that were with her that night.
Correct.
And that's where it sits now today. But we can still keep an eye on Joe and keep an eye on Cora and try to do what we can do to keep her safe and figure out what his next move is, because he's always on the run. He's always on the move from DC. As soon as the DCF call comes in, Joe quits his job and moves Cora somewhere, and then she's out of school another month. But that's not abusive. There's not anything for DCF to be concerned about, apparently.
But my phone's it's on 10%.
Yeah. What'd you say?
My phone's going to die. It's on 10%.
Right. Well, we've covered everything we wanted to cover tonight. We gave you all the updates on where is Sara Ebersole. We always have new updates because we're pushing. And I'm going to say it one more time to all of you out there who are making threats. You need to stop. The police have been told you're making threats. So if anything happens to anyone that is advocating for Michelle, you're going to be in a whole bigger shitload of trouble than you've ever imagined in your life. So stop with the threats, because they're stupid and they're useless. And advocates are good people. Advocates are people trying to help families of victims of homicide or victims who are missing. We are not out here. We are out here to resolve cases, help families, help them get justice, help them lay their loved ones to rest. So threatening good people is a solely sad waste of your time. So enough with the threats. We all are on Facebook every day. We see the threats and we'll keep on reporting them. So you might as well just knock it off. It's not doing you any good.
Yep.
All right, everybody. Good night for tonight. And keep standing for victims of homicide. Keep standing for victims of domestic violence and survivors. Support your survivor. And join us tomorrow for Calling Out Corruption for the Sandra Birchmore case, where we will meet Mizzy, the initial one and only advocate, and then she built her team around her advocacy in Stoughton and Canton, Massachusetts. Thank you, everyone. Please spells for Sarah. Have a great night.
All right, good night.
Good night, Michelle. Hang in there. Thank you, everyone. Michelle is one strong woman. She is held up against threats, accusations, lies. Facebook can be evil. Social media can be evil. Don't participate in any of it. And don't toss evil back at evil. It doesn't do anybody any good. I know it's hard and I know you want to, but don't threaten Tyrone. Don't threaten his family. That doesn't do anybody any good at all either. So all threats need to stop. This is a young woman at 26 years old who went missing, is now presumed dead, who had a daughter. The daughter does not probably have a clue what happened to her mother. I don't trust that Joe Mayton has ever told poor little Cora where her mommy went and what happened to her mommy. She never got to go say goodbye to her or see her. There's been no funeral. So everybody lodging threats has to stop this. This is about a young woman and finding her remains and bringing her home to her family. And that's what we do at Social Change Warriors. We advocate for victims of domestic violence and domestic violence homicide. And on Thursdays, we are calling out corruption as we see it, calling out corruption in police and government to bring cases to a closure for justice for their families. So I hope you'll continue to subscribe to our channel to advocate for all of the victims that we are advocating for. Your presence in our live streams means the world to me. Your presence in the replay means the world to me and all the families as well. So I will play us out with our theme song video tonight. We listened to the music in the beginning with our slide show of all of our victims. And tonight we'll play us out with our actual video theme song. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you again very soon. It's just us, calling out corruption. My life mattered.
They try to silence the truth we shout, but we're still here, we're still calling out. Corruption hides behind a badge and name. We light the fire, expose the shame. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life mattered is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us, we're a movement wide. Together we rise, won't run or hide. The stories echo, the pain runs deep. For stolen lives, we can't just weep. Elected power, but their hearts are cold. We'll bring the truth, let it be told. We're justice seekers, we'll fight the fight for every voice lost in the night. My life matters is the cry we sing for the ones they try to bury within. It's just us.